Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, neighbors wouldn't quit dumping their trash in my backyard, so I returned it to them with some upgrades. I live in a house, but there's an apartment complex directly behind the back fence in my yard. The entire time I've lived here, I've always found random trash tossed over the fence that's gotten progressively worse. The most annoying thing is all of the glass beer bottles, as some of them hit the concrete and shatter, which makes it unsafe to let my dog run around in the yard. It's so trashy and inconsiderate behavior from people that I've never even met, and I've finally started trying to push back. First, I tried the legal route. I reported the illegal dumping to 311 as I couldn't figure out how to contact the building manager, and it was to the point of entire full trash bags ending up in my yard. They said they couldn't do anything, and I would be responsible for cleaning it up since it was in my yard. Annoying, but also basically gave me the green light to throw crap back over the fence, as 311 pretty plainly told me it only came down to whose yard the trash was in. So I went out with gloves and threw every single piece of trash back over the fence. Full trash bags, dirty shoes, beer bottles, used diapers, etc. These people think my yard is their personal dump, and it's not even one neighbor doing it. I caught multiple residents of this apartment complex on camera casually tossing trash over the fence. Not even a full day later, and these losers had thrown it all back over. The audacity. It's not even just laziness at that point, as it would be significantly easier to just take it to the apartment's dumpsters, but they somehow felt entitled to throw trash into my yard, enough that they'd literally return it when I threw it back. Fair enough, two can play this game. First, I threw all of the full trash bags back over, but not just onto the ground. I tossed them all the way to the roof of the apartment complex, which isn't really accessible, and it's far from ideal given we're in a tropical climate that will make it smell quickly up there. Next, I took all of the dirty shoes, tied their laces together, and used a long pole to hang them from pretty much any projection off the side of the building that couldn't be reached. Also, I stuffed them with expired meat and doggy doo. I wanted to shatter the beer bottles as well, but I decided to just recycle them because I didn't want anyone to actually get hurt. You'd think that would be enough to prove my point, but I also went behind the fence that night and planted a bunch of running bamboo. There's a sort of alley between the apartments and my fence that's all grass, so the idea is to let it grow enough to block them from even walking through there to begin with. Bamboo is very hard to remove once it starts growing. This is what you get when you act like trash. I do not feel bad about my retaliation, even a little bit. Am I the jerk for dropping off my stepkids with my in-laws and saying that they're not my problem anymore? My wife passed just before last Thanksgiving. It came out of nowhere, and I'm somewhat broken. To make it worse, my stepkids have decided that since I'm not their father, they don't have to obey me anymore. They're teens, and they have never been my biggest fans. They love their dad, and I was only ever their mom's husband. However, when Dina was alive, they treated our home well and me with respect. After she passed, they suddenly became jerks. Yes, I know their mom passed, and it sucks. But that was my wife and the mother of my kids. I am also having a tough time dealing with this. Their paternal grandparents are also upset with me for not being more understanding of all that they're going through. I've tried. I've offered them counseling. I've given them space. I've been there for them. I'm at my wit's end. The last straw was when we were over there for supper last week. I said it was time to go so I could get the little ones to bed. My stepkids said that they didn't want to go and that I should leave them and come back for them. It's a 2-hour drive. I said no. Their grandparents said I was being too hard on them and that I should just let them stay. I'm having a hard time with my 2 small kids, the loss of my wife, and 2 teen jerks without having my in-laws pile on to make my life more difficult. So I did. I also packed up their stuff. Instead of coming back for them, I dropped off all of their stuff at their grandparents' house. I have 2 kids under 5 to take care of. I don't really have time to baby 2 teens that are just making my life harder. My house is clean for the first time in weeks. My kids are sleeping through the night. My stepkids are living with their uncle in the same city as me, so they can finish high school with their friends. Everyone on their dad's side is against me. I really don't care. I was told by both of them and their father that I'm not to try and parent them, so I'm not. I actually do not have any paternal rights over them. Their dad was not even okay with me being a contact for them at school, so his parents bear the contact. My wife left behind a small life insurance policy, which I will divide between the 4 kids, but I was the breadwinner in my house. I bought pretty much everything there for the last 8 years, so now it's all mine. My in-laws are calling me a selfish jerk for abandoning the kids, but I have 2 kids that need me more. My older 2 have a dad as well as grandparents to help them. My kids do too, I guess, but they also have me, and I want them to have a peaceful home. Not the jerk. They have lost their mom, absolutely right, so you would expect trouble and playing up, etc. But what I don't understand is why their dad hasn't swooped in. If you were such a hindrance, then where is he? As long as everyone is happy, including all of the kids and yourself, I wouldn't fret about anything, as I can't see what you've done wrong here. You haven't left them on the streets, you've left them with family, and they're happy. If Daddy is so worried, he can step in, can't he? Am I the jerk for excluding my niece from my son's birthday party after she ruined his first party? Last week, I hosted my son, James, who's 9, birthday party at my parents' house. I paid for and organized the whole event. We just had to use my parents' place because our house was being renovated. My parents had agreed and said that they had no problems. I had invited James' closest friends from school and football club for the party, and 2 of his cousins from his dad's side that he's very close with. James had made it clear he wanted a friends-only party, and I was okay with that. However, the day before, my sister Linda called me angry that her daughter Ava, who's 11, was not invited. I tried to explain that it wasn't a party for family members. Also, James wasn't very close to Ava. She's a bit spoiled and always picks fights with James whenever they're made to play together. Linda didn't want to listen and cried that Ava was having a hard time making friends in school, and it didn't help if her own cousin was excluding her. I felt sorry, but I didn't relent, and Linda cut the call. She then called Mom, and they tried to convince James behind my back. He also said no and told me. My parents apologized, and I thought that was it. Fast forward onto the party date. I have everything arranged, and the party's going well. Halfway through it, Linda arrives with Ava and my parents, saying that they'll end the party early if I don't let Ava join. I reluctantly did. James was upset, but I told him to ignore her and enjoy time with his friends. Ava tried joining the games, but would get upset and scream if she lost, and Linda would make the kids restart. Obviously, the kids lost interest and stopped playing, and it upset James. They tried playing football, but since Ava couldn't play, she constantly interrupted them. They went to the living room to play Xbox. Ava failed a few rounds and got angry and left. Nothing worked for her, and James didn't care. After a few hours, I took the kids to cut the cake, only to find Ava had thrown it to the floor and was crying at the table because everyone was mean to her. This was the final straw, and James started screaming at her. He called her a loser and evil and started crying because his party was ruined. Linda was upset and asked James to apologize. I stepped in and told Linda to take Ava and get out. My parents stepped in and told me James was out of line and Ava was just a kid. I was so angry then that I just ended the party altogether and told Linda her daughter has no friends because she's a brat. I called my husband and we took all the kids to McDonald's and got a different cake for James to cut there. I took pics and posted them to Facebook as well. Since then, I've received calls and texts from Linda calling me names for excluding Ava and has been demanding James apologize. My parents have berated me as well, and they're angry because James now refuses to speak to them. I'm not sure if James should apologize, and I don't want to either. We did nothing wrong, and I won't tolerate anyone ruining my son's birthday. But maybe I shouldn't have insulted Ava, so I don't know. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. I think the people who owe James the biggest apology are the grandparents. They threatened to end the party early if the cousin wasn't allowed in, and look what happened. She's a spoiled brat who can't control her impulses, and her parents don't care. At least you know now to never have a party in the environment you don't either own as your own home or control as the paid place. As for your son, yelling at her for ruining his cake, I'm surprised he didn't try to do more than just yell. And your son is very justified to not talk to your grandparents as well as that cousin ever again. Maybe if they would parent their kid and teach her some stuff, she would be able to make friends. If this is how she acts, why would anyone want to be around her? You saved the party as best you could, and I would definitely talk to your parents about the fact that they have no right to demand who comes to your son's party, even if it is their house. Am I the jerk for leaving the same day that I moved in with my boyfriend? I've been dating Matt, 26, for a little over a year. We knew each other 2 years prior to dating, and we got along really well. I have a son who's 2.5 and a daughter who's 4, who he had already met from multiple times when I was with the friend group. Here's the thing though, we just got a place together, but the place needed work before we could move in. So we agreed with the landlord that we would help fix it up with him, the landlord, to get half off the first month's rent. He agreed. So for a month we were there every day cleaning this place up, and I started noticing some red flags, like a quick temper. But I literally just assumed it was because the AC wasn't working and it was like a sauna in the house. So he was pouring sweat and getting upset. But again, I thought it was because he was hot, because as soon as he cooled off, he was fine again. But we finished the house. The AC was working again, so it was no longer hot. We moved in yesterday morning. He was barking orders basically all day to me, like telling me where to put things, or if I put something somewhere he didn't like, he would be like, "Why would you put that there?" and literally looked at me like I was stupid. He gave me the "Are you serious?" look, but I let it slide because I didn't really know what else to do. Every 15 minutes, he would be asking me to go with him to Walmart because he wanted to blow a bunch of money on stuff to make the place feel like home. We hadn't even unpacked half of our stuff yet. He got irritated when I said I didn't think we should spend more money right now. But anyways, I go and pick up my kids and stuff for dinner. I grabbed a family pack of kielbasa, sausage, the ones that have 3.5 strips, and rice. Well, I only cut up 2 of the sausage because that's literally plenty. He comes over and says, "Why aren't you making all of it?" So I told him I didn't need to make all of it, and that this would feed all of us and still be enough for leftovers. And I made a comment about how I was going to use the rest of the kielbasa that I wasn't cooking to feed my kids and myself the next day because I like kielbasa sandwiches. He blew up. Thankfully, the kids weren't inside to hear it. My mom came over and brought them to the park across the street. He told me there was no way that it would feed all of us and that I was selfish for only thinking about what I would eat tomorrow instead of worrying about feeding all of us tonight. Walked out and slammed the door after I said, "Are you really blowing up on me about food right now?" I watched him drive off. Well, I immediately started taking me and the kids' stuff out to the car and had my mom leave with my kids. I get everything loaded up before he gets back. Most of my stuff is in storage still. Well, I get a text from him about 25 minutes after I left saying, "Did you really leave? Please come back and talk to me. I'm sorry. I'm having such a bad day and I'm just exhausted from working and doing the repairs here. You shouldn't have left over this, etc." Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. It was the audacity to say, "You shouldn't have left over this," when he literally left over it. The dude is a red flag and you did nothing wrong. Not the jerk. Leaving was the right decision. He thought he had you in a position where you wouldn't leave. Started being a total jerk once you agreed to live together and started working on the apartment. It would only have gotten worse over time. You did what's best for you and your kids. New partner doesn't want my son to move in with us. Would I be the jerk if I broke it off? So I, 31 female, have an 11-year-old son from my previous marriage. Broke up 10 years ago. And I share custody with my ex. I have him every second weekend, ex has him most of the time. My current partner, 36 male, and I decided to move in together into his house with his 2 kids who are 6 and 8. I'm currently slowly moving household items when I get spare time, so I haven't fully moved in yet. Whilst dropping my son off to his father's house, it came to light during conversation that my ex has been mistreating him at times. I was incredibly upset. I started creating a plan to get him out. Ex and I don't have court orders, and when I got back to my partner's place and told him the situation and how I might have to get majority custody, he had a less than stellar reaction. He seemed less concerned about the incident, more so how I was going to continue working. I start at 5 a.m. most days and said things like, "What about my career?" I knew he might live with us, but not this soon. I didn't really consider this, etc. I was upset at his reaction. I mean, he's happy for me to move in and raise and financially support his kids and look after them, but why is my son different? I know what I have to do to protect my son, but I'm about to potentially blow up my relationship and take my career as well to have him back with me. I'm so lost right now and I have no idea what to do. My mind is going everywhere. Would I be the jerk if I stopped the move and potentially broke things off after this reaction from my partner? Was this just shock about the situation, or is there something bigger here? I know this is a mess, so I'm happy to answer any questions. Edit. I just want to make one thing clear to people who are taking time to read my post. I'm going to get my son out of there. I would never leave him in this situation. My question was more so aimed at, would I be the jerk for breaking things off because of my partner's reaction? I'm getting my son 100% and making sure that he's safe. He's not staying there. My top priority is my son and his safety. That was never in the question. You said it yourself. He's happy for you to move in with him to share the bills and help raise his 2 kids, but he's not happy to do the same for you. I can understand your boyfriend's concern to some level about you still needing to work. There are other jobs out there that will be more suitable hour-wise. That can all be sorted out with time. Entitled Mom takes my car. This happened yesterday, and I'm still mad. An important note, I'm in a wheelchair most of the time and have parking plates on our car. Our cast. We've got me, we've got my fiance, we've got entitled mother and entitled father. This past week, my fiance and I have been staying with her parents 4 hours away for her sister's wedding, along with more of her extended family. Until yesterday, the trip had been lovely. Her family are surprisingly accepting of us and helpful when it comes to my disability. We arrived a few days earlier than other family members, so fiance can spend more time with her parents and siblings. Since we've arrived, we've been joined by her grandparents, cool uncle and his kids, plus her brother, entitled father, his wife, entitled mother, and their kids. The wedding isn't until Saturday, so my fiance and I have been passing the time by exploring the area and checking out local cafes, and that was our plan for that day too. We woke up around midday, and after doing our makeup and getting dressed, we go to the driveway to find our car gone. Naturally, we start panicking and frantically asking everyone home if they know what happened, including entitled father. We cancel our plans for the day and spend 2 hours figuring out what to do when we hear a car pull into the driveway. We rush outside only to see our car pulling in and entitled mom and her kids climbing out. Fiance stomps up to her and demands to know what the heck she was doing. Me trailing along behind her. Fiance, what are you doing with our car? Entitled mom, I just borrowed it to go to this supermarket. Me, why didn't you take yours? Because it's busy at this time of day, and I wanted to get a spot. We just stared at her, dumbfounded, before entitled father rushed out of the house to join in. Entitled father, what's going on here? Entitled mom, they're angry at me for borrowing the car. Come on guys, it isn't a big deal. She had the kids with her. Me, then she can take her own car and park in a parent spot. Entitled mom, but parking at the door was so much easier. You try shopping with 4 kids. I don't want them walking through a car park. Plus, eldest kid has hurt his leg and needed it. After trying to explain how we didn't consider it borrowing if she didn't ask, how it was illegal for her to use my permit, and finding out entitled father had lied to us about knowing where our car was, his wife finally snapped. She knelt down in front of me and grabbed the wheels of my chair, holding me in place. She got into my face and started screaming. If you're so sick you can't even walk, I'd be disappointed if I were your parents. Who would want you for a daughter? You're lucky you're not my kid. I had enough at this point and started crying. I can't handle things like this, and I'm the first to admit I'm a crybaby. Here is when fiance's parents rush out of the house to see what's happening, and entitled mom turns on her own waterworks. She starts crying about how we're awful and selfish, and will never understand how hard it is to raise kids. Fiance's dad made her get her shopping bag out of the car and got our keys off her. Turns out, entitled father snuck into our room when we were sleeping, took them, and gave them to entitled mom. The rest of the day, she was awful to the 2 of us, even tipping a whole glass of milk on me. After talking with fiance's parents about how uncomfortable we were staying with her while she's being like this, we made the decision to check into the local hotel for the rest of our stay. And here's the cherry on top. After packing our things and getting in the car, we noticed that entitled mom had removed our heart-shaped Pride air freshener, taken down the photo of fiance, me, plus a bunch of our friends, and messed with our radio. She also peeled off the sticker of the Team Instinct logo we had on our dash, along with throwing the Pikachu plush we had on there into the back of the car. Today is Thursday, and I'm really dreading having to see the 2 of them on Saturday. I hope they act like adults and don't cause a scene at the wedding. We've uninvited the 2 of them from our wedding, But sadly, the wedding on Saturday isn't ours, and we can't do anything about them being there. I absolutely love all the recommendations to sticker bomb their car in pride stickers, and I'm absolutely considering that. It would upset her so much. We spoke to my in-laws, and they wanted to kick the entitled parents out of the house, but fiance and I decided to go to a hotel instead. Only so much I can handle being woken up at 6 a.m. by kids asking to play my Switch. Has anybody ever borrowed anything from you without asking? Please leave me a comment letting me know. Next we've got, get me fired? Say goodbye to your bonus and promotion. This happened a good long while ago. I was in high school and got a job at one of the big box stores in the computer department. This store chain had an in-house technician department, which was always where I wanted to go. After busting my butt in sales for 2 years, putting up with rude customers, silly rules, and all the other glorious trappings of a retail job, I finally got a chance to be promoted to the technician department. It was not as glamorous as I thought it would be. I quickly found out that most of the repairs consisted of running the pre-packaged antivirus suite, updating Windows, and doing data backups prior to wiping computers clean and reinstalling them. I always liked tinkering with hardware more, but since 80% of customers had laptops and those repairs were deemed too complicated by corporate, we would just send the laptops out to get repaired by the third-party vendor. It was still better than sales by a long shot, and we had a great team working in the technician area, except for one dude. Let's call him Mike. He always behaved like his crap smelled like roses. He was technically a lead technician, and even though that just meant he had a little more authority, he had access to a corporate account to arrange shipments of computers to and from our store. He was acting like he was the manager of our department. Nevertheless, our actual manager was a splendid dude that took care of us, and as such, Mike's jerkery did not bother any of us that much. Fast forward a little, and our awesome manager found a much better job. This opened up a spot for manager, and since the whole store supervision was going through a shakeup, the general manager had been fired, and all the people he hired, 90% of managers, were under review. This led to everybody trying their hardest not to mess up, and the new general manager decided that since our department was one of the best in the district, he would not try to hire an outsider, but would promote from within. Now, Mike was working at this store for almost 10 years at that point, and a couple of people that started working with him as sales associates were by this point managers and assistant managers. One of them, Brittany, was an assistant manager in charge of customer services and checkout. One of the conditions for Mike's official promotion to manager was to keep the #1 spot in the district performance-wise. One of the key metrics was the rejection rate from our third-party vendor. If we mistakenly sent them a software problem to fix, they would charge us extra. Mike started obsessing about those numbers, especially when it came to the rejection rate. He insisted that we would spend extra time to confirm issues even when there were recalls from manufacturers for these items. I hated this bureaucracy, since it meant that people needed to wait almost the maximum allowed time to get their computers back. So a few times I skipped the extra diagnostics when I knew for sure the problem was hardware. One day, Mike decided to do an audit on all outgoing machines and found out that I've sent 4 units skipping his extra checks. He told me that he will write me up for it, but when he tried, General Manager told him that he is not a manager yet, and I have shown to the GM that I followed the corporate procedure in diagnosing these units. I thought that was the end of this, but I was sorely mistaken. Mike hated that I showed a GM that Mike's procedure was inefficient and that he was denied power over me. About a month later, I got a call from Mike asking if I could come to the store on my day off because there was an issue with a customer. When I came in, I was greeted by Mike with a crap-eating grin, and he told me to wait in the back and not to work on any computers. After about an hour, Mike and Brittany came in and asked me to head to the front office. They started an official write-up process and claimed that I have made a mistake creating a backup of customers' data and have placed a DVD with no data on it into the box that was returned to customer and then wiped his PC clean. I knew it was BS, since I always copy the data to an external hard drive, run antivirus to make sure that nothing bad got copied, and then burn DVDs. Yet, when I asked to check the external hard drive, Mike said that due to my negligence, I was not allowed back in the tech area. He went to check the hard drive and said there was nothing on it. At that point, I knew he was BSing, but him and Brittany were hard bent on completing the write-up. I have asked for a senior management to be present and was shot down again. Turns out GM was on vacation. They completed the write-up and told me that due to the egregious error that cost the company tens of thousands of dollars, I was not allowed to work in the tech room and I would be relegated back to the sales floor. I told them to shove it and submitted my resignation on the spot. I later found out that a week later, they gave the customer the data that was on the hard drive all this time. Mike simply erased the DVDs. I grabbed a rewritable DVD by mistake for that backup and waited for the customer to come back and complain. I have also called the corporate HR line and told them what happened. They said that since I quit with a letter of resignation, they would not launch an investigation, but they have received and recorded my complaint. Through luck and the fact that I was a good hardware tech, I landed a job at a shop that did hardware repairs a week later and started in another week. Turns out, this depot was the service center that covered the entire district, and they had the master contract with the big box chain where I worked. Since I have worked as the tech in that store, I was more than familiar with their labeling and ticketing system. For tracking purposes, the label included the store and technician number. After a couple of weeks, I gathered some goodwill at my new job and started trading the units with my colleagues to work on as many units from my old store as possible. Over the next 3 months, I made sure that every single unit sent in by Mike would come back with an extra charge. Also, it turned out that Mike, since he was in charge of shipping, would sometimes steal other technicians' tickets to boost his personal performance numbers to secure that manager position. Well, that bit him in the butt hard. There was one week in particular where he sent in over 15 units out of 20 to get fixed, and 15 units came back with extra software charge. I have also kept detailed records that proved that Mike did not follow his own policy of extra checks. When the performance figures came out for that quarter, store crashed into 5th place from number 1. Mike missed out on his promotion and a big bonus that was promised to him. A good buddy of mine from the store got the manager position a few months after that, and I have explained to him how to reduce the number of software charges to almost 0. So he looked like a superstar. Mike was first relocated to lead technician, then he was either let go or he quit. I'm not sure. Last I heard, he started his own mobile technician business that folded after a year. What I didn't know is that this whole incident with Mike messing up led the GM to review everything Mike did, including my write-up and dismissal. As it turns out, they did not even register the write-up since I quit on the spot and buried it. The only way GM was able to find it is because of the HR complaint that was filed against both Mike and Brittany. GM was not very pleased that they went behind his back to get rid of someone and fired Brittany. He was a very decent man who called me later that day and apologized and even offered me my old job back. I thanked him, but I was making more money at the new place and did not have to deal with the customers, so I passed. Have you ever had a boss that you just couldn't stand? Please leave me a comment right now letting me know. Next we've got, guy scams me online, he loses, I become a hero. This story dates back to around February 2017. I had just gotten CSGO for the PC I got a few months prior to Christmas. I bought the game and had a bit of money left over, so I opened some cases and unboxed an awesome new skin. The skin was worth about $20 at the time, and I was very pumped because the odds of getting something good from a case in that game are crazy low. Naturally, I go and play a few games with my new skin in its full glory. Enter Brad, not real name. I met Brad in a match in Dust 2, and we started chatting. He was 16, seemed like a cool guy, and so I added him. We started playing together often and became pretty good buddies in about a week's time, and we even had each other on Instagram. We were pretty tight. One day, Brad tells me to get online and watch him gamble CSGO skins, so I hop on Skype and watch. He goes onto his site and starts winning a pretty good amount, and I'm obviously super intrigued by it. He starts telling me that he is super good at this and would be willing to do it for me. Looking back, I cannot believe I was that stupid, so I traded him my skin, eager to watch him win me something better. Boom. Call ends. Blocked on Skype, blocked on Steam, blocked on Instagram. 0 means of contact. My skin was gone. I knew I should have just let it go right there. I had learned a very valuable lesson for the low price of $20, and I could drop it and move on. But I was actually really hurt by the whole ordeal. I thought we were friends, and it really upset me. I instantly start messaging mutual friends of me and Brad, and the ones that also didn't get blocked instantly either ignored me or called me an idiot. I made another Steam account, added him, and tried begging. No luck, blocked again. I reported him, which obviously did nothing at all. I was completely out of luck. But then, after a day or so, the feelings of disappointment washed over and anger started to take its place. I was gonna get this guy back. It quickly became a bit of an obsession to get back at this guy in any way possible. I tried angry emails, obviously didn't work. Tried to lurk on Facebook, nada. This went on for about 3 to 4 days until I nearly gave up. What was so frustrating is that I actually had a lot of info on him and the city he lived in, and it was getting me absolutely nowhere. I was nearing giving up, till I tried what I thought would be a Hail Mary option. I went on Yellow Pages, put in his name, city, and hit enter. There was exactly one result that popped up, in this massive city with this odd last name, and bingo. I look up the house and it's clearly a very wealthy neighborhood. Nobody who lived in a house like that would need to steal $20. So, with all the bravery and my 14-year-old self, I called the number. A lady picks up. Hello? Hello, ma'am. Does a Brad last name live there? She sounds very concerned. Yes, this is his mother speaking. Checkmate. I then proceeded to explain the entire situation to this guy's mom, who sounds absolutely furious at Brad, and also terrified I have their home phone number. Then Brad's father comes in the room, and she puts me on speakerphone so I can explain the whole story to him. He is livid at Brad. He tells me through audibly gritted teeth that he is going to sort it out and to stay on my computer. About 5 minutes later, receive a friend request from Brad and also a trade invitation where he was not only giving me my skin back, but more items, each one worth in excess of $200, and I accepted the trade. I get a call back from the number. It was Brad, faintly crying and apologizing for what he had done, saying that his father was very upset with him. The way he was talking made it clear his dad was in the room. I started to giggle a bit at how insane the situation was. I told him I'd forgive him if he sent me his trade history, which he did in a record pace. I saw the items he had in the trade history, added the guys I assumed he stole them from, asked them if they had been scammed by Brad, and then I surprised all of them by returning the stolen items. Next we've got, don't interrupt me when I'm trying to upsell. So we have a rewards membership. There's a basic version that is free and gives points on purchases, and also a pro version that costs $15 per year that additionally gives a discount on used games, monthly coupons, magazine subscriptions, and some other stuff. The rewards card is part of a tracked metric which we are told to keep above a good number, roughly 15%. So essentially, for every 100 customers you ring up, you should sell about 15 pro rewards cards. I had just served a customer who had already had a pro card, and as he was gathering his things off to the side, I started to take the next person. He didn't have a pro card, so I started telling him about the benefits. So the pro card would be pretty good for you since you're getting a lot of used games here. It gives a 10% discount on used games. Normally it's $15 for a year, but with the games you're getting, it's essentially only like $5. He was getting around $100 of used games. For a year, I explained. He looked like he was thinking about it. I went to get the games and put them in the case, and then resumed the conversation. So, would you like to sign up? It's a good deal if you come here often, I said. As I'm talking to him, pro guy butts in. Hey, if you want, you can use my card to get the discount. Then you don't have to pay anything. He snorted. I was kind of taken aback as I had never had this happen before. There was an established policy that said we are not allowed to have community rewards cards, which is basically just a card that some unscrupulous employee would use to ring up any customer that didn't have a card and didn't want to buy one, to keep their numbers up. This was a big no-no as far as policy goes, but some people still did it for fear of being fired for the numbers being too low. Instead, they got fired for having a community rewards card. Anyway, I quickly reasoned that the policy would apply here. Customers are completely fine to let friends and family use their accounts, but I decided that customers with no connection could not, and this was affirmed by my higher-ups after telling them about this. I calmly say to Pro Guy, "I'm sorry, sir, but he can't use your card." He looks offended. "What? What do you mean? I've let my friends use my account before," he says. I say, "Yeah, friends is okay, but you don't know him, do you?" I turn to the new guy in front and ask, "Do you know him?" referring to Pro Guy. New Guy shakes his head. Pro Guy says, "So what if we don't know each other? I'm just trying to save the guy some money." "No, you just want the points from his transaction." New Guy says to Pro Guy, "Thanks, buddy, but I'm okay." He turns to me and says, "I think I'll pass on the card today, but thanks for the info." "No problem," I respond. You'd think that would be the end of it, but Pro Guy is not satisfied. "See? He didn't buy it, so you can use my card now." To New Guy. "You'll save money." To me. "And you'll keep your numbers up. It's a win-win." Some regulars know about the metrics, not many. I casually say, "Sir, I'm in the middle of a transaction. This gentleman has told you he doesn't want to use your card. Please let us finish the transaction." He does not like this. "I can't believe you're talking to a customer like that. Give me the number for corporate." "I can help you as soon as I'm done with this customer, sir." As I'm finishing up with New Guy, my manager comes in from break and goes to the back to put her stuff away. I say to Pro Guy, "She's the manager if you want to talk to her about it." Apparently, he didn't want to talk to her. I'm guessing he did something similar in the past and she told him off. I don't remember if he saw her as she was walking by, but perhaps he didn't. Otherwise, he would have said something. But after telling him that, he seemed to just drop it and left. I'm still curious as to what exactly his argument was going to be. "The associate wouldn't let me stop him from trying to sell a rewards membership." Some people are so silly. Do you have a rewards card at any of the stores you shop at? Please leave me a comment letting me know. Next we've got, Karen thinks she can walk in my house and help herself to my dinner. This story happened many years ago. While we were in the military, we moved frequently, and at one base in particular, we lived in condo-style houses, lines of homes that have 1 or 2 walls that are connected to each other. I mention the type of house because it shows how close we were to our neighbors. We did have our own driveways, but they were for single cars and were right next to our neighbors. This base was in a warm location where we should have had air conditioning, but we did not. We were enlisted and lived in older houses, and only newer enlisted or officers had AC. The reason I mention this is because I would leave my front door open and just have the screen door closed so we would get crosswind to cool the house. This should have not been a big deal, right? Wrong. Our neighbor that was connected to our left liked to come over and borrow things. Our neighbor, or choosing beggar, will be referred to as CB moving forward, and would come over, and at the beginning she would knock and she would just ask for things such as a cup of sugar or milk. Then as time progressed, CB would knock and just walk in, and at this point she still asked for stuff. To be honest, this didn't really bother me too bad because it wasn't too frequent, and then all of a sudden it changed and CB stopped knocking altogether and began just walking in. I did say something, keeping it light in hopes that it would work. I knew we were going to be neighbors for a while, and it could be bad to have a bad relationship between neighbors. Back then, I had a lot of anxiety about having negative interactions with people. Then CB became pregnant, and her entitlement all of a sudden knew no bounds. CB would not only walk into my house, she would go into my fridge or freezer and grab whatever she wanted. This one time I was making dinner, and she walked over and smelled it, grabbed a plate, and served herself. I said something to the effect of, "I am making that for my husband," and CB responded that she is only taking a little and there will be plenty for him. That was it. I was mad. After that, I tried locking my screen door, but the cheap lock wouldn't hold. CB was able to pull the door open and eventually snapped the lock off. I finally said forget it and started shutting my actual door, which wasn't good because it was hot and no AC, but it was better than dealing with her every day. I thought that would work, but she started going through our back door and coming through our screen door. Oh, did I mention her husband was like 3 ranks higher than mine, and she was seriously taking from us when they could afford way more? Anyway, this went on while CB was pregnant. Finally, after CB had her baby, CB started asking for even more. She wanted my husband to come over and get the bugs when her husband wasn't home. She asked me to do things she could easily do for herself, like go to the grocery store. The final straw was when she woke me up at 2 a.m. saying so cold and mumbling. I seriously thought something was wrong with her baby. I got up, woke my husband up, let him know, and ran over to her house, and I do mean ran. I ran into her house, door was unlocked, and CB was laying on the couch. She wasn't feeling good. She wanted me to get her a blanket from her upstairs closet. I finally lost it and told her I thought something was wrong with her baby. I was over it. I told her, CB, you are not to walk into our house without permission, and you are not to ask my husband for anything anymore. The only way it is ever okay to call me in the middle of the night ever again is because you need 911. CB just looked at me and said something about, since I am here, can't I get the blanket, and that I am being a horrible neighbor. I walked out of the house, went home, and went to bed. Moving forward, CB scowled at me every time she saw me and pointed at me and talked about me to her husband and other neighbors who told me later. CB's husband got orders and they finally moved. I was so happy because she made it uncomfortable being at my own home till she left. Karen watches as her brats tear apart my office. I work for an ENT a couple of days a week. My job is to both efficiently and accurately give patients a hearing assessment before they see the doctor. In the audiological field, ENT days are pretty well known to be quite high stress because of the complexity of assessments. The patients we assess are often there because they were referred from private hearing clinics or GPs for red flags or complicated cases, and the speed at which you are expected to assess people. I normally see between 35 to 40 patients per day. One appointment that goes a bit over the allotted time can throw off your entire day. Anyway, yesterday, one of my first morning appointments, a 55 to 60-year-old woman, entitled Grandma, showed up 20 minutes late. When I called her back to my office, she was dragging a kid, entitled Kid, who looked about 3.5. As soon as she let go of his hand, entitled Kid started running around the room, screaming and banging his minion toy on the walls. I asked entitled Grandma if she had brought anyone to watch him while I tested her. Entitled Grandma: "My daughter is in the waiting room." Me: "Okay, can you please take entitled Kid back to her then? It will be easier to do the test alone." "No, he wants to play in here." Me: "I'm sorry, but this is a doctor's office and I need to assess you. He can't be distracting you or I during the test." "Fine, I'll get my daughter." So she goes and gets the daughter, entitled Mom, who brings another kid, a girl who looked about 2, into the room. Entitled Kid 1 is still screaming and running, and entitled Kid 2 joins in immediately. I'm already upset. They were 20 minutes late and having to argue about the kid and then fetching entitled Mom, who was already taking another chunk of my precious time. So I get entitled Grandma into the sound booth, and entitled Kid 1 comes running in. Me: "I'm sorry, buddy, but you can't be in here. You need to go wait with your mom." Entitled Grandma: "No, he can stay. He wants to play in here." "No, I already told you. He can't be distracting you or I during this test. And he's not just, hey, stop! Don't touch those wires." Entitled Kid 1 has started pulling out the wires plugged into the booth, and neither entitled Grandma nor entitled Mom do anything. I pull his hands away and guide him out of the booth, which he protests by screaming and throwing himself onto the floor. I lock eyes with entitled Mom, and she continues to do nothing. Entitled Kid 2 has found the pediatric assessment toys and has dumped the entire bucket onto the floor. I chose to ignore this for the sake of time. While I am attempting to assess entitled Grandma, both brats are causing complete havoc behind me. They're grabbing extremely expensive and high-tech instruments off of my shelves. They are taking hearing aid color chips and trying to rip them apart. They are throwing the pediatric toys all over the room. They are climbing onto my desk chair and knocking over everything in my desk. All the while, entitled Mom is sitting there doing absolutely nothing, casually and placidly observing the wreckage. I had to stop testing 4 times to stop the entitled brats from ruining equipment probably worth more than the average car. Entitled Grandma could hardly hear my instructions through the microphone because of the screaming. My blood was just about boiling at this point, but it is my job to be professional. Eventually, I finish entitled Grandma's assessment and the room is in ruins. Me to entitled Mom: "Your kids need to clean up what they've done." Entitled Mom: "Isn't that your job?" "No, my job is to assess hearing. Your kids made this mess and now they need to clean it up. I need to take the next patient." Entitled Mom: "They don't want to clean up." Me, struggling to keep my composure: "Listen, this is a doctor's office, not a daycare. You and your kids need to clean this up now while I get ready for the next patient. There are toys in the waiting room that they can play with." So entitled Mom and the kids do clean up what they've thrown around, But Entitled Kid 2 is still holding one of the pediatric assessment toys as they try to leave the room. Me. She still has a toy in her hand. I need that back.
You have a whole bucket of toys. Can't she keep just one?
Me. No. I need them for assessing other kids. She needs to put it back. Entitled Kid, can I please have the toy back? Of course, being 2, Entitled Kid doesn't want to. She hides it behind her back and tries to leave, but I hold the door shut. Entitled Mom.
You are being selfish. She's only 2 and just wants one toy.
Me. Again, this is a doctor's office. The equipment in here is necessary for the work that I do. If you do not give the toy back, I can't imagine the doctor will allow you back to this practice. Entitled Mom still doesn't see this as a problem, so I reach down and pry the toy out of her hand. She screams and throws herself onto the floor. I open the door to let them out. Me. Have a nice day. Entitled Mom. Death glare. If you had kids, would you let them play with toys in the doctor's waiting room? Please leave me a comment right now letting me know. Next we've got 2 ladies scream at each other across the checkout lines. Several years ago, when I worked in retail, this incident is what stands out and is by far the craziest story from my retail experience. The 2 most important characters of this story. We've got Mom Lady, a woman who came in and almost always had 5 boys with her. While one kid was in the cart, the others would run around and yell and be underfoot. Kinda makes you reconsider having kids. Deputy Woman, lady in her 40s to 50s and is a deputy in the police department, or so she claimed. This happened in the middle of a Sunday rush, and there are 5 cashiers open. All of us are busy. My designated role was bagger on that fateful day, so I'm doing my stuff for the cashier when Deputy Woman comes through our line. 2 rows over, Mom Lady and her 4 kids come through. The kids start running around, yelling, and rolling across the floor. Our store manager at that time was a tower of a man, who I'm pretty sure reached 7 feet or so, was trying to not step on a rolling kid. Rolling kid was at the exit between 2 checkout lanes, so that made stepping around him difficult. Store manager needed to be moving, but his progress was hindered by the kid constantly rolling where he needed to put his foot down. Finally, the store manager was able to walk around the kid and just do what needed to be done for the cashiers and customers. All the while, the other kids are just adding to the chaos. This is paraphrased, but is the gist. Deputy Woman loudly demands,
Whose kids are those?
Mom Lady.
They're mine.
Deputy Woman.
You need to discipline your kids.
Mom Lady.
How I raise my kids is none of your business.
Deputy Woman.
You can't even get your kids to behave. You deserve to have them taken away. I am a deputy in the police department, and I will report you. Someone give me her number so I can report her.
Nobody gave Deputy Woman Mom Lady's number. Mom Lady.
Forget you, jerk.
Deputy Woman.
Forget you. I will report you. I'm a deputy in the police department.
This round of yelling lasted a bit longer with the forget you and calling each other names. Deputy Woman continued repeating that she was a deputy and that she would report Mom Lady. All the while, us workers are keeping our heads down and doing our jobs with a particularly intense focus. It was so bad, I thought we were going to have to call the police to break up a fight. After spitting a few more insults at each other, Mom Lady and Deputy went their separate ways at opposite ends of the store. I was honestly half expecting someone to run in from outside and yell that there were 2 ladies having a smackdown in the parking lot. The rush ended at this time as well, and all of us were laughing awkwardly and were beet red. Another cashier came up and said that her customer asked if the ladies were going to fight. I didn't see Mom Lady again for about 6 months, and when I saw her again, she always only had 1 or 2 kids with her. 1 kid in the cart and the other free. Deputy Lady was never seen again. Do you think the deputy was telling the truth or just making it up? Please leave a comment letting me know. Next we've got, scam me for $80 for cleaning on move out? I don't think so, Jack. About 10 years ago, my landlord passed, or at least the person who owned the place we were renting. The property managers had been delightful, but whoever inherited wanted to sell, so the house was for sale. Enter Jerk, we'll call him Jack, who decides to buy the place. Now ours was the top floor,
attic converted into a suite of a house less than 35 square meters, 375 square feet. The bathroom was literally where the stairs up to the top floor used to be. The place was tiny. Jack came to check out the place, as you should before buying a place. He had one of those Bluetooth earpieces in, and I can't even remember if he even acknowledged us. He spent about 30 to 45 seconds in our suite. Next time we hear from him is about a month later. Apparently, he had bought the place. He stops by to give us a notice of rent increase, effective in 6 months, legal minimum, from $485 to $795. The place is not worth that much. We say what the heck and decide to buy a house, since it's not much more per month. Surprise to anyone who's never bought a house, it was more than just mortgage payments. We give him all the required notice to move out. We move and clean the place up really well. Mind you, when my partner moved in, it was not especially clean, and we happen to have the move-in inspection which mentions this. Jack decides to try to scam us for $80 of our damage deposit for cleaning. He doesn't provide the required forms, just says, "I'm going to hold $80 from your damage deposit for cleaning." We respond with, no you're not. Jack, assuming we need the cash for our next damage deposit or bills, and we'll settle for anything. "Take this, or I'm going to keep your whole deposit." Cue revenge. So he decides to just keep the whole deposit, $485. I filed paperwork with the rentals men, who unsurprisingly, after the investigation, rule in my favor. He's ordered to refund the whole deposit, but Jack decides not to pay, and the rentals man doesn't have any enforcement powers, so I have to go to the local sheriff's office. They can send a legal demand letter for the deposit plus costs, but it will cost me $100 to $150, I forget, up front. Sure, go ahead. Jack decides to ignore the sheriff's kindly letter. Sheriffs say that they can start proceeding to recover the debt plus costs, but I again have to pay up front, about $250, and it might take a while. I guess most people quit at this point, being out of pocket $700, throwing more money at the problem, and maybe having to wait months didn't appeal to them. And there's also a chance you never collect. I chose to pay the sheriffs. They sent another, less friendly letter to Jack, but here's the best part. Now that they're recovering a debt, they're going to recover on all of the outstanding judgments against him, and apparently he has tried this crap before. They sent him another couple letters, pay up or else. Jack chose else. Then they seized title to Jack's giant white SUV. I can't remember what it was, but not a cheap one. They didn't physically take it away or anything, but they gave him 30 days to pay all the judgments against him, or they would take it and sell it at auction. Somehow, he all of a sudden found the money. My share, $485, plus $150, plus $250, for a total of $885. The other people who had registered judgments, but not paid to start the collections processes, were about $5,000 more. I can't remember how long the whole process took. At least 6 months though. Landlord tried to scam us for $80 for cleaning when we moved out. Ended up costing him almost $6,000. Next we've got Karen demands items we just don't sell. Hey everybody, this little story is about 3 to 4 years old, so conversations won't be word for word anymore, but I'll do my best to describe everything as it was. I worked a seasonal cashier/stocking job at one of the many cheap dollar-type stores here in the US. This was my first actual job, but I had been doing quite well despite my really bad anxiety. This took place a few days before Thanksgiving. Fresh off of my usual 15-minute break for the day, I walked out of the back room and made my way to clock back in to finish my shift. I stop when I hear an older lady, who I will refer to as customer, trying to get my attention. I let her know that I need to clock in as I just got off my break, but I will be glad to help her in just a moment. Knowing my management, I would have gotten in trouble if helping her before clocking in, as they are very precise and picky about times. I clock in and make my way back to where customer had been, but I don't see her anywhere. I look around the nearby aisles to no avail, so I head back to my register as my coworker needs to go back to stocking shelves. All seemed fine and things were going smoothly until customer suddenly enters my line. I give my usual customer service smile and I start to ring up her items. Me, Hello, did you find everything all right today? Customer didn't hesitate to immediately start barking at me. Customer: No, it's bad enough you clearly don't know how to do your job. You just left me there. You're supposed to be about customer service. Who trained you? Why can't you do your job? Me: I'm really sorry, ma'am. I had to clock in before helping a customer on the sales floor. It's just part of our policy. I should note, I was actually starting to choke up here. I probably got a bit red in the face too. With my anxiety, I easily crumble under confrontations like this. Customer almost looked as if she was even standing taller, as if she thought her putting me down was a good thing. Well, they need to retrain you. I came here looking for black serving plates for my Thanksgiving dinner. You have none. Is that the only place for party plates? She vaguely motions towards the back of the store. Me: Yes, ma'am, and we just don't carry any black serving plates. I'm sorry. I could double check with my manager in case I'm wrong if you'd like. Customer tapped her card against the counter as I finished ringing up her items, giving me this death glare. No. My Thanksgiving theme will just have to be ruined. I get the last of her items bagged, watching the register screen as I do my part of customers' card transactions, just trying to keep myself together while apologizing again, but she wasn't done yet. I glanced to my line, and the two people who had now gathered behind her are having none of her attitude, but they say nothing. Customer's face starts getting red, and she even crosses her arms in a huff. Another thing, do you have any large party gift bags for adults? Me: I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you mean. You have gift bags themed for kids. Why not adults? Where can I find some? Me: I'm sorry, ma'am. I've never seen any bags like you're describing, and we only carry what we currently have back there. Well, you should tell your managers. There's absolutely no reason why you can't have any decorated bags like this. Me: I can call my manager down if you'd like to tell them. No, you need to do it. Call them. As I hand customer her receipt, I give in and call my manager over the intercom. A coworker ends up coming down and tells me my manager is in a conference call in her office, so she's unavailable. I tell customer that I'll make note of her suggestion, and she storms off with her full cart in a huff. Thankfully, my next two customers were amazing. They had heard a majority of what customer was saying and how she was treating me, and noticed that I was getting worked up with my anxiety. They talked me down and told me I handled the situation really well, and we had a laugh about it before they left. Those two customers really made my day. Next we've got Never Judge a Book. I just joined the Reddit family, and this is my first post. I'm old, like in my 70s old, but my wife said that some of my stories might be entertaining. This is something I witnessed about 10 years ago. We've got Old Lady and we've got Big Bully. I was shopping at a store with a big bullseye logo. I noticed this old lady, looked to be in her late 60s, who was just going about her business. I noticed because she held herself very upright and with a lot of confidence, though she was only about 5 feet tall and 100 pounds if she was an ounce. She had on a nice red blouse and tan pants, which turned out to be a bad fashion choice for this store, as you will soon see. As I passed by, we nodded to each other, and I started making my way to the luggage and bags to look for a new backpack for myself. After about a couple minutes of looking, I heard raised voices and glanced over my shoulder to see the old woman in a heated exchange with a middle-aged man, Big Bully, twice her size. He was talking very loud and calling her awful names and telling her that just because she was old didn't mean she could ignore customers. She was, I imagine, trying to explain that she didn't work there, but couldn't get a word in edgewise since the Big Bully was refusing to let her talk. I started to walk over there to see if I could help, but soon saw that my help was not needed. Bully actually had the gall to grab her by her shoulder and give her a shake. I will never forget what happened next. Old Lady busted out some sort of martial arts move and kicked his knee, sending him falling to the ground. By then, I was close enough that I heard her softly tell him, "Look, I said I don't work here, and I will not hesitate to end you. Now, do you understand? I asked if you understand." He nodded his head and she said, "Now, are you going to be a good boy and leave me alone?" He nodded again and she released him. He knelt there on the floor for a minute, rubbing his knee,
and looking like any full-grown man would if they just had their butt handed to them by a little old lady, contrite and embarrassed. She simply walked away and continued shopping. He finally got up and speed walked out of the store. I caught up to her and asked her if she was all right, as if. She smiled sweetly and said, "I can't stand bullies." We talked for a minute, and she told me that she took self-defense classes at a nearby senior center, and she learned to take care of herself a long time ago and refuses to be bullied. Like the title says, you can't judge a book by its cover, so don't mess with harmless-looking little old ladies. They might just kick your butt. Karen tries to expel me. I recently graduated high school, so I obviously still look like a high schooler. I went to visit my old high school as I was picking up my sister who was shadowing there. This was a private, Catholic, all-girls school with no more than 400 students. Being as it was a small school, and I being a recent graduate, most staff and students knew me. First thing you do to enter the school is you need to get a badge from the front desk. It clearly said alumni. I put it on my shirt. I pulled my phone out and plugged my headphones in and headed to my old advisor's classroom. It was still early to pick up my sister and got permission to meet up with my old advisor. Since it was a bit of a walk, I was wearing wedges, jeans, and a blouse because I just came from a presentation at my university. I plugged my earbuds in and examined the hallways. All of a sudden, someone rips my earbuds out of my ear. Crazy teacher. "Why are you not in uniform? It is not 1:50 yet." It was a rule that you couldn't be out of uniform until after 1:50 if you were a senior, since it was a senior privilege. "Also, you know the rules. 1 earbud." She waves my earbuds in my face. Me. "I'm sorry, miss, but I am..." She cuts me off. "Also, ripped jeans and hooped earrings? That is a dress code violation." I try to speak. "Come with me to the dean." Everyone was in an assembly in the other building, so no one but some teachers were in the main building. This lady takes me to the dean's office. I knew the dean well. She was my coach's mom and my other coach's wife. Crazy teacher pushes me to the chair outside of the office, knocks on the door, and tells the dean she has a student who is breaking several handbook rules. The dean says she is finishing up an email and says she will be out in a few. The crazy teacher looks back at me as I again tried to explain to her I am not a student. I point to my now messed up badge. She ignores me and I give up and pull my phone out. I am very annoyed at this point and just wanted to upset her because I was doing nothing wrong. She sits on the other chair across the hall and sees me take my phone out. The moment she does, she tried to pull it out of my hand and tells me I should not be on my phone during school hours. I go, "Ma'am, I am not a student here. I go to insert university here. I am here for my sister." She rolls her eyes. "Being accepted to a college does not mean you are there yet. You are still under our rules," she says. After a few minutes, the dean walks out, doesn't see me at first, and looks at crazy teacher and goes, "Who is it?" The crazy teacher points at me and sees me giving her the "Lord help me, because I cannot be held responsible if this lady yells at me again." She asks me to come inside her office without crazy teacher. Dean. "Ah, OP, great to see you. How's college?" Me. "Great. My sister is shadowing today and I got out early, so I came down to hopefully say hi to my old teachers." Dean. "That's good. I saw your sister's name on this morning. Wonderful girl." At this point, she calls crazy teacher in. Dean. "Crazy teacher, what was the problem with Miss OP?" Crazy teacher. "She was on her phone and had 2 earbuds in, wandering the hallways. Also, she is in several violations of dress code. She needs to be punished. I asked her several times to put her phone away. She also talked back to me and lied about her status here." I sigh. I look at the dean. I laugh. Crazy teacher. "This is no laughing matter." Dean. "I'm sorry for crazy teacher's behavior. She is new here. This is OP. She's an alumni of 2019. Her sister is shadowing today. I cannot punish her for anything. She has her name tag saying she is an alumni visitor." Points to the name tag. Me. "Thank you, Dean."
Crazy teacher, I am sorry for the confusion, and I did not mean to cause trouble. Dean asks crazy teacher to return to work, and she will be talked to later. The dean asked me if I want to report her. I was like, no thank you, it was a misunderstanding. An unnecessary one, but still a mistake. Dean nods, hugs me, and I was off to see my other teachers. I finished visiting the teachers that were there and walked past the office of crazy teacher who sat there and gave me glares. I smiled. I went back to the front desk and waited for my sister. Nothing happened to crazy teacher, but I heard she got a good lecture about the way to approach students or visitors. Next we've got, be a terrible neighbor? I'll tear your car apart. So, to set the scene, this happened a few years ago when I still lived at home. My father has always shoveled the sidewalks and a few driveways on our street. Some of these were elderly people who couldn't do it themselves, and some paid him. When he passed, the job fell to me, and I continued it in much the same way he did, and people seemed happy. An elderly woman on our street passed, and the frat boys moved into the house. There seemed to be about 4 to 6 guys, could never be sure who actually lived there and who just spent a lot of time there. In their early 20s, they were loud, they partied, and they weren't really interested in participating or getting along with the community. It goes without saying that the new residents quickly became tolerated at best, as they weren't anyone's favorite neighbors. They had a car and they loved it. I don't know exactly what it was, but it was low to the ground and fancy looking. They would come in hooting and hollering, blaring their horn at all hours of the day and night. They'd spend their time sitting in lawn chairs, looking at, leaning against it, using it as a table. They may have constantly been around it and using it, but they didn't respect it. It looked brand new when they moved in, and after about 4 months, it had lost a mirror, front and back bumper were cracked up, and it was scratched and dented to heck and starting to rust. Winter came, and while we had tried to introduce ourselves before, and had many a run-in with them, I thought I would go over and explain how I usually did the snow clearing around here and see if they were interested in hiring me. It was hard to retell the conversation that happened, as essentially 3 conversations were going on at once. Me and frat guy who came to the door, frat guy at door, and another frat guy who wanted to know what we were talking about but still wouldn't come to the front door, and conversation that had been in progress that frat guy at door still insisted on being a part of. But it ultimately came down to them letting me do their section of the sidewalk, and since I wasn't going to shovel their driveway for free, they would handle it. At this point, I let them know that I would be doing the sidewalk that ran through their driveway, as it counted as sidewalk. They didn't care. Side note, their house was in the middle of the block, so it made no sense to not do their sidewalk. Winter came and so did the snow. I cleared it away as usual, and they did not. They never shoveled, instead opting to trample it all down and throw the occasional bag of salt or sand on it. Then, Mom won a cruise and wanted to take me and her siblings with her. I agreed. I found one of the neighbors who was interested in clearing the snow and gave him the keys to my snowblower. Told him I'd make sure he'd get paid when I got back, as I charged per snowfall. Off my mother and I went. I returned to a mess. The neighbor had put minimal effort into the job after they realized how difficult it was. It had snowed a few times, and the sidewalks were all packed down, uneven and slippery. Much worse was that the frat boys had decided to use my driveway as overflow parking for their parties, and it was in a similar situation to their sidewalks. For reasons unknown, the house and trees was toilet papered, and some frozen liquid covered the doors and windows. That was it. I was fed up with them. The parties they had, the police who came for the noise complaints, how they pounded on all doors after the cops had left to try and find out who called them, the empty beer cans and bottles they littered the neighborhood with, how they used the street to drag race, messing with the girls that they saw, and more. I was sick of them and wanted to get them back in some way. I got out my ice chipper and I saw my chance for revenge. I walked over to their house and told them I would be clearing the sidewalks. They had better do something with their driveway. I was told to buzz off. Okay, I was only trying to help you. Over the next 2 days, at about 18 hours a day, I chipped off all ice from the sidewalks and restored them to their pristine condition. When I did the frat boy sidewalk,
I was delighted to learn that it was over 8 inches of ice over it and the sidewalk, meaning I had effectively dug a trench at the entrance of the driveway that was deeper than their car's clearance was high. After I was done, I went back, told them once again to be careful coming in and out of their driveway and that they should really clear their driveway. Once again, I was told to buzz off. The first time they came tearing out of that driveway, I could hear the bottom of their car scraping, but didn't see any damage. Over time, they realized what the trench was doing to their car. At first, tried to take care of it themselves with aluminum shovels. Didn't work. They had snow removal companies come over, who, after seeing the mess, refused to remove what was essentially an 8-inch block of mud and ice on top of their driveway. They'd see me out shoveling and asked me to do it for them. I politely declined every time on the grounds that I was much too busy. Over the rest of the year, they continued not shoveling. The trench grew deeper, and by the time the snow started to melt, their car didn't have a front bumper, rear bumper, rocker panels, a muffler, or the protective cover on the bottom of the car. They had it towed away and moved out shortly after. Next we've got Karen tries to take my dog because Entitled Kid wants it. A little history. The story took place a couple years ago when I was 15. I'm Mexican, and at that time I was still practicing English while living in the USA. I'm also very pale in skin tone. This is going to be important in this story. Cast. We've got me. We've got Entitled Parent, Entitled Kid, and the neighbor. I left my home to walk my dog, who is a border collie mix. I still don't know what the mix is. As I was only 2 houses away from mine, Entitled Parent and Entitled Kid are walking as well. Me, not knowing much English at the time, and they looked like they don't speak Spanish. I tried not to look at them and walk past them, but they spoke to me. Here's the conversation. Entitled Kid. Mommy, look at that dog. It's so cute. I wonder if it will like our dog. Entitled Parent.
Hey boy, what type is your dog? It could come with us to make a new friend.
Me, trying my best to speak to her. Sorry, no speak English.
Stop trying to be stupid and talk to me normally.
My pale skin made me look native here, so she thought I was American. Entitled Kid. Mom, I don't remember the dog's name, to have a friend. Please ask him if we can have him. At this point, I still didn't know what they want. All I know is they made signs that they want my dog. Me, trying my best to speak from what school taught me. No, you can't take my dog. Looking back at this, I don't know how they understood me.
Young man, my daughter wants your dog to go to our house. You will give me your dog.
Entitled Kid actually started crying during this, and my dog got a bit rowdy at what was going on. I didn't know what to actually do until God himself sent me relief, and my neighbor, who speaks both English and Spanish, saw that I looked worried and came to help me out. Neighbor. Ma'am, why are you bothering him?
Who are you?
I'm his neighbor. Why are you bothering him?
Well, this boy told me to buzz off and made my daughter cry because she wanted to pet his dog.
Neighbor. Ma'am, this boy doesn't speak English. He just moved to the United States 1 month ago. He couldn't have said that to you. Entitled Parent looked embarrassed and just decided to leave with her kid without saying a word. Not before taking my dog's leash out of my hand. Now, my neighbor was a runner. I saw him in the morning always running for exercise, so he was in front of her in seconds. Neighbor. That is his dog. You don't have the right to take a dog from someone. Entitled Parent was actually scared, and she quickly apologized before running with her daughter to her house. My neighbor gave me back my dog and told me to stay home for today. I told my parents the story, and they called the cops after it. We found out she's not even from the neighborhood. She's from the other side of my city. I sometimes still laugh at this event. I'm still practicing English, so who knows? I may need to write another thing like this. I really hope I don't. Next we've got, being pregnant is not a reason to not watch my kids for free. This happened years ago when my husband and I lived on a military base, and I ran an in-home daycare that was regulated through Child and Youth Services. We had 1 kid of our own, and it was a remote base, so jobs were scarce. So I figured this was a good option for me to work and be able to also stay home with our kiddo. The daycare spots were a shortage, and that meant I was full and even had a wait list. This also meant I could kind of pick and choose the kids I had in my care. For the most part, I had great kids and decent parents. I even became friends with one of the sets of parents, and that was my mistake. This mom, let's call her Karen, seemed to be normal, not entitled, when we first met. We even had our family over for barbecues on a couple weekends, and things were good. During the time of having the daycare open, I became pregnant with our second child. I have issues with headaches, and when I'm pregnant, they get so much worse. Karen began asking me to babysit after hours for free, as friends for her. I agreed once in exchange for her watching our son once in return, and she agreed. I watched Karen's kids, and she never followed through and watched ours. After that, Karen frequently asked me to allow her kids to stay late and not get charged, and also she would ask me to babysit after hours for free, and each time I would say no, and I used my headache as a reason. Karen actually said,
"You can't use being pregnant as an excuse forever."
I said no, not forever, but for about 9 months. And it was about this time I knew I would not be able to keep running my daycare after a couple months because of the high-risk nature of my pregnancy. I started by informing the CYS and then put a letter together for the parents, and I gave them 2 months' notice to find care. This was an additional 30 days over and above what is required in the contract. I wanted to be fair, and I knew it might be hard to find care. I was also releasing them from their contracts as soon as they could find care. They did not need to give me notice. I handed out the letters at pickup that day. Karen waited till the other parents left and tore up her letter with a smile. Karen,
"Will you throw this away for me?"
me, sure, but you did get the gist, right?
Yeah, you are closing your daycare because you're pregnant and don't want to deal with all of those other people.
No, I'm closing because I have a high-risk pregnancy, and my doctor says I shouldn't be doing it, and I will have lots of appointments.
Yeah, but you can still watch my kids for me. And since you won't be a full daycare, you can do it for a lot cheaper.
Me, Karen, I'm closing my daycare. Karen,
okay, then at least you can watch my kids for free while I find daycare and be my backup care.
No, I'm sorry, Karen, I'm not doing that.
This is ridiculous. Women get pregnant all the time, and you already have to watch your son. You can totally watch my 2 kids too. Or are you telling me you can't watch your son either?
Me, I'm not getting into this. I think it's time for you to find a new provider.
Fine, but I don't think I should have to pay you while I look.
You have to pay or I will stop watching your kids. Karen left with her kids. She kept bringing her kids, and when it came time for payment, all of a sudden, her husband came to get the kids and dropped them off and said Karen will be bringing the payment. This went on for 2 days, and then I told him that if I wasn't paid, I would not accept them into my care and they would still owe me for the past. Karen showed up on the 3rd day and wrote a check. This was normal, but it bounced, and that was not. I then contacted CYS and let them know per the contract, I gave them an invoice with a $25 NSF fee and a 48-hour notice to pay in full in cash. Karen's husband showed up and paid, but he said Karen was going to be upset because she did not want to pay. I guess she felt I should be watching their kids for free since I was closing my daycare. I talked to her husband and said I feel it's best he find new care as soon as possible, and that until he does, I would need to be paid in advance for the care. I had the kids for 2 weeks more. A way funny later event that happened. After I gave birth to our daughter, this had to be about a year and a couple months after closing the daycare, Karen called me. She wanted me to babysit her kids so they could go to Las Vegas to a military ball. Oh, did I mention she wanted me to do this for free? I said no. Next we've got, she can have whatever she wants. Another tale from the stuffed animal store. I was the main showrunner when it came to parties at my location. For those who didn't know, that mall teddy bear store actually runs parties, usually birthdays. This story requires some background knowledge on how these parties work, so follow along if you can. Basically, parties break down into packages where each kid gets a choice of animals/accessories for a small rate. So for a basic bear or dog and a t-shirt, the parents spend like $18 per kid. For more choices in animals and a full outfit, it's $25, then $35, etc. Sometimes parents would pay for the 35 pack for their kid, but get everyone else a smaller package. That is not what happened in this story. Inevitably, we would get parents that brought their kid to a birthday party and didn't understand how this worked, and would tell their kid as soon as they got there to go pick an animal regardless of price. Usually this wasn't a big deal. I would just stop the kid, explain how it worked to the parent/group, and all was well. Until Big Karen came. She was Big Karen because on top of the usual warning signs of Karens, she was huge. 1 p.m. on a Thursday in the middle of July, party group is starting to trickle in. I'm handing out name tag stickers for the kids and explaining how the process works to parents who are laughing and smiling and being generally pleasant. Suddenly, Big Karen arrives. Big Karen.
God, it was so hard to find this darn store. Finally, we're here.
I tried not to wince as the parents in the group are pointedly looking away from Big Karen, hoping that it meant nobody knew her. Alas, her adorable kid ran up and hugged the birthday girl, and so was given a name tag. Immediately upon receipt of the name tag, Big Karen began again.
All right, go pick an animal.
Me. Excuse me, ma'am, but that isn't how it works. She has to…
Whatever, kid. She can have what she wants. I'll make up the difference.
Let's ignore the fact that she called me kid for a moment. The parents, remember, didn't get the birthday kid a higher-end bear. All kids got the 25-person package, and here's this obnoxious woman trying to flex her wallet on everybody. Me, firmly. I'm sorry, ma'am, but she can't pick anything she wants. I have the animals the kids are allowed to pick from a basket over here.
I don't care. She's getting whatever she likes. I said I'd pay for it.
Me. If you choose to get a bear outside of the pre-selected options, you'll have to pay the standard pricing for it. Big Karen, barely listening at this point.
Fine, fine.
She was warned. I informed birthday mom and all was well. Big Karen was relatively obnoxious throughout the process, particularly during the heart ceremony, which is done in a big group when it's a party. She was literally yelling that it was stupid and a waste of time, and to just get on with it so the kids could dress up their bears already. It became clear quickly why she wanted to get to this part, because once the accessorization commenced, she was flexing over everyone else once again. Big Karen.
You can have whatever you want. These other kids have to get whatever birthday kid's mom can afford.
I was kinda stunned at this point, because birthday mom looked like she might cry. But all the kids picked outfits in the budgets while I ran around helping to dress their animals. Once we finished, they got taken to the front of the store. Birthday mom was thanked and finished paying. All was well as she took all the kids to sit in the food court for lunch. All of them except for Big Karen and her brood. Big Karen.
All right, let's go.
Me. What?
We're going to sit for the birthday party.
No, ma'am. You chose to get your bear separately from the party. You still need to pay for her bear and accessories.
What?
At this point, she was pre-rung on the register and I had her total. Yup, your total is… It was over $100.
That's outrageous.
Manager out of the blue. Ma'am, you did agree to purchase your animal outside of the party. If you want to keep it with all of the accessories, you'll have to pay for it. Big Karen was real upset about this, but she did pay up and went off grumbling. The party in the food court was much quieter when she arrived. Mostly, I feel bad for the mom who probably had to scrape together to pay for the party in the first place. Give my son the candy he's allergic to. Backstory. This involved a mother that literally tried to give her brat candy that he was allergic to. I was 16 at the time. Sweet 16, got a new job from my bagger job, and I worked at a candy store. I loved seeing the kids run in, greet me, and then beg their parents for some sugary treats. Let me quickly hop onto this story. Our cast. We've got me. We've got entitled mom. We've got entitled brat. Let's call him Billy. The story. I got this job not long after I quit my bagger job. I thought to myself, hey, this sounds super fun. Let me try it out. So I did. Next thing you know, I'm working there. I loved my job. I met so many great people, had some nice conversations with them, and I was working pretty well with my coworkers. I worked Mondays, Thursdays, Fridays, and the weekends to gather as much money as possible for upcoming friends' birthdays, family birthdays, Christmas, all that nice stuff. So I worked hard, been kind, and always had a smile on my face. But I have a short temper, and I hate dealing with entitled people, brats, jerks, stuck-up snobs, and so forth. Most of my workers know that they should not get into an argument with me, but that never happens. I'm too nice, they told me. Can't wait to prove them wrong with this story. Now, I have dealt with a lot of dumb people during my 3 years working at the candy store. I really didn't like some people either. There was this group that would always come in and try to steal. We'd always catch them before they got banned, finally, after they tried to steal a massive jawbreaker. That thing was huge, bigger than my head. But my job was fun nonetheless. I worked with 2 other people. Let's call them Apple and Caramel. Apple and Caramel were siblings who I hung out with. And by the way, just between you and me, I only named them this because Apple was sour but sweet, while Caramel was sweet in general. Oh, and I was hungry for caramel apples during this time. Our manager, Ben, was very strict about our rules, and he didn't tolerate foolery in the workplace. But he was protective of his coworkers, mostly over his own son, who worked there as well, Chad. It was me and Caramel. Chad was in the back of the store. It was a lazy day. Not too many customers, which is understandable. It was a Tuesday after all. I was hanging around with Caramel. We were both playing 8-ball on our phones when we heard a small tinkle noise. Enter Karen with her annoying, screaming son Billy. We hopped up quickly and looked. Caramel walked out to greet them, smiling. Karen gave her a look and ignored her. She was looking around with a kinda nasty look and rolled her eyes. We heard her scoff. The kid, who looked to be like 5, was staring around at all the candy, hungry as ever. We heard him cry, "Mommy, I want the candy." Next thing you know, she released Billy onto us, 'cause I guess she didn't want to deal with him anymore. Billy ran around, wiping his tears and screaming, causing such a ruckus in the store. Then he sees it, the walls of candy. His little hands tried to grab the nearby jawbreakers. They were the most popular, but in the process, he dropped one and it broke. Me, worried for his safety. "Hey, get away from that wall, it's dangerous." The candy on the wall has dispensers, but most of our candy, you either put on a glove and put it into a bag, or you use a pair of tongs to go ahead and grab it. I also didn't want him near it because for sanitary reasons. I cleaned it up and threw it away. That jawbreaker was a medium, so it was quite big. I hopped up, walked over to Billy, and gently nudged him away from the rest of the jawbreakers. Some jawbreakers are absolutely massive and probably weighed more than Billy, so I was also doing it out of safety. Billy gave me a look in the eye, took in a deep breath, and shrieks in the store, "Help!" and bolted for Karen. I didn't really care, so long as he wasn't close to any other candy or the wall that was stocked with it. You can have kids in the candy store, but please watch them and teach them not to try and touch everything. I thought it was over and got up to sit back down at the cash register, but then Billy brought over his mother, Karen. Her hair screamed, "Give me the manager," and the way she looked at me, I'm pretty sure Karen was trying to stab me with her glares. Karen, "Excuse me? You?" I stared at Caramel, who she didn't look like she really wanted to get involved, and went into the back. If you are ever reading this, thanks Caramel for leaving me with a Karen. Me, blinking. Me?
Who else? How dare you grab my baby with your disgusting hands?
I'm pretty sure if she spat any more, I could have taken a bath because of how much she was spitting. Me, politely. "Ma'am, you must supervise him. He could get hurt." She stopped me with a hard glare. Karen, visibly turning red.
Don't teach me how to raise my own kids, you jerk. Now, we deserve free candy to make up for what you've done.
She had a grin splitting across her face. I looked at the employee's door and begged that either Chad or Caramel could come in and help me, but no one came. Thanks, Chad. Thanks, Caramel. Me. I can't just give you free candy, ma'am. You must pay for it. And besides, since you broke the medium-sized jawbreaker, you must pay to make up for it.
What? I'm not paying for it. It's broken, and it was Billy who did it.
She was tapping her foot angrily. as if I was going to say, "Oh, of course, my bad. Let me not charge you for something your kid broke." In the store, you break it, it must be replaced. Even if it was your kid who broke it, you have to pay for the broken merchandise. Billy, literally screaming even though he was not even 2 feet away from his mother.
I want this!
Pointing at our batch of peanut brittle. We make fresh, homemade peanut brittle. More like Chad makes them, and they were the best, honestly. On the container containing the brittle, a big sign said, "Warning, peanuts in product. Ask worker if you would like a sample and if you have any allergies." In big red letters, it even stated, "Peanuts in product." I think you know where this is going now. Karen.
My son wants that for free. Give it to him.
Me. Ma'am, I can't give it to you for free. You must pay for it. And before we can give it to you, we must know if the consumer has any allergies. Karen huffed and looked at the price. Then, with a dramatic gasp, reached in her bag for her wallet. The kid was putting his hands and face on the container the entire time. Me, very sweetly. Billy, please get away from the glass. Billy.
You aren't my mommy. You can't tell me what to do.
He tried knocking the glass lid to reach inside until I nudged him away. Billy, beginning to cry, looked at his mom with tears. Karen saw, and immediately she looked at me. Her face was twisted in a rage.
You grabbed him again. Keep your hands to yourself.
She was practically hissing at me as I wiped the glass container from all the gross drool and marks on it. Me, getting a bit frustrated. I have asked him nicely to get away from the glass, ma'am. Before Karen could go off on me, Chad walked in with a fresh batch of homemade peanut brittle. Karen eye-scanned him, then she smiled all sweetly, as if she wasn't about to lose it on me. Karen.
Sir?
Chad, who was grabbing the old peanut brittle out the container. Yes, ma'am?
This lady,
she glared at me.
says I have to pay for a broken jawbreaker.
Chad, looking at me and Karen. What's going on, OP? I explained everything to him, telling Chad about the way the kid climbed our candy wall, broke the jawbreaker, touched the glass multiple times, and made a mess. I also told him I had to nudge him away so he wasn't in any danger. Chad understood and was glad I did that. One time while Chad and Apple were here, a kid came in and wanted a jawbreaker. She tried to grab the biggest one, in which it rolled and fell on her hand. We have massive sized ones, going well over $100. They were huge, but so good. So if Billy was to grab that, he could have easily gotten hurt. He got down on one knee and looked at Billy carefully, who was sniffling. Chad, would you like some peanut brittle? Billy, tears drying up.
Yes, please.
Me. Karen, is your kid allergic to anything? Like nuts, perhaps? She shrugged, and I stared at her stupidly. She doesn't even know what her kid was allergic to? Chad gave him a piece, though. I was hesitant and watched. Billy munched on it happily, and which Karen saw with a grin.
I'll be taking a 1/2 pound bag of peanut brittle, and I won't be paying for the jawbreaker Billy broke.
I gave Chad a look, though he looked back at me and shrugged. I was in the process of getting her the brittle when I heard small gasping noises. Billy, who was once white with bright eyes, had red eyes. His throat and face were swollen and red, and he looked like he was choking. Karen told him to actually shut up. Chad and I stared for a few seconds before calling an ambulance. I was on the phone with the operator as Chad tried getting closer to Billy. It sounded like he had some of the brittle stuck in his throat. Karen, huffing.
He's fine. He's just being overdramatic. How much will the brittle be?
I couldn't believe my ears at this. She was worried on the price? She was blocking Chad, who was desperately trying to help Billy. We weren't allowed to touch the customers unless something major was going on. And if they got the message that they weren't supposed to do that, we can gently nudge them away. Chad flew past Karen, knocking her away as he reached for Billy, who looked to be barely breathing. He then did the Heimlich maneuver, and sure enough, a piece of peanut brittle flew out of his body. Billy had had an allergic reaction. The operator on the phone told me they'll arrive extremely shortly, and which they did, not long after I hung up. Karen was screaming at the cops and ambulance once they arrived, saying how Chad was aggressively shoving Billy. Ambulance got him first, and luckily, Billy was okay. He was unconscious, and he was still incredibly swollen, but luckily, he was okay. The entire time though, I was shaking. I never witnessed anything like that happen, and I hope I never see anything like that again. It was so scary seeing him gasp for air, all swollen and red. The police questioned Chad, who told basically everything, but Karen interjected a lot, saying he shoved me away from my kid as I tried to protect him. I stepped out and stood beside Chad, who I backed up on his story. Karen glared at me and was saying the same thing. Then a cop turned to us, away from the screaming Karen. Cop: "Do you have any cameras? We can see what really happened on the footage." When he uttered those words, Karen froze. Her skin turned pale and she was stuttering. Probably because we are all going to see how she neglected Billy and tried to stop Chad from helping him. But she didn't stop yelling and screaming at how me and Chad were going to get arrested. Before two cops walked into the back to check the footage, Carmel walked out and blinked. Cops questioned her before letting her go. Me and Chad didn't know that Carmel actually called our manager, that Ben was here too at the shop. Ben demanded to know what was going on, in which a cop and Chad explained, going into detail. We heard Karen's yells, how Billy is going to be scarred forever because of this, when a cop finally told her to shut up. The cop that went into the back and came back later holding handcuffs. He handcuffed Karen and took her away. She was arrested for endangering Billy. Once Billy and Karen were taken away, Ben, our manager, asked if we were all okay. I said we were. Chad told his father, Ben, that I handled Karen and Billy very well when I quickly said all I did was call 911. Carmel apologized to me about leaving me alone to take care of Karen and her bratty kid. I said it was okay. She got a hold of our manager and did the right thing. Everything turned out well. Ben told us that there had been 3 or more people out doing the job. He congratulated us for saving Billy and exposing Karen. Honestly, even now, older, I still can't wrap my head around how she didn't even know that her kid was allergic to stuff. I know it wasn't Chad's fault for giving him the peanut brittle, but please, parents, know what your kids are allergic to. I never want to see that happen again. It was honestly terrifying. I just hope the kid is more behaved now and doing much better now than when he was with his mother, Karen. Is there anything that you're allergic to? Please leave me a comment right now letting me know. Next we've got Entitled Mom Demands I Help Because I Apparently Work at a Trampoline Park. Backstory. This happened a while ago while I was at a birthday party, age 12. My classmate was celebrating at a trampoline park and my friends had began playing hide and seek with me, basically just hiding from me with no apparent reason. I started walking around to look for them when I got bored of it and went on my phone. There were plenty of other people there. Cue Karen and her spawn. Cast. We've got Karen, we've got Spawn, we've got me, we've got Friend, we've got Nice Employee, aka Hero of the Day. I was staring at my phone talking on Discord with some gaming friends when I suddenly heard a loud, ahem. I look up and the following conversation goes like this. Karen, what are you doing? You should be ashamed going on your phone while you're at work. The slushy machine is empty and I need you to refill it. Me. Excuse me, but I don't, she interrupts me. I don't care that you're on your break. Go refill the slushy machine now, or I will get your manager. Mommy, I want the slushy. Keep in mind, this dude was about 15 and acting like a baby. I know, entitled kid. I'll get you your slush. She now turns to me. So, what are you waiting for? Go get him the slush. I then laugh awkwardly, as I'm not good in social situations. Me. I'm sorry, but I don't work here. You're gonna have to talk to an employee about that. That's BS. You're obviously an employee. You're even wearing the uniform. The uniforms were orange and had the name of the company written in 3D in purple and gray paints. I was wearing black Adidas pants and a black hoodie with a white square on it, and inside the square was a man that looked like he was falling. Me. I do not. The uniforms are obviously orange and not black. You still work here. There's a picture of a man jumping on your shirt. Now, go get us the slush. And because of the inconvenience, it should be free. Karen then proceeds to drag me by my arm, and so I end up standing. Now, just so you know, I was not very small then, not now either. At 12, I was about 175 centimeters tall, and I was pretty strong. So as you probably could tell, I was looking down at them both, as Karen was very small, and her son slightly taller than her. I also did not look like I was 12, and could easily pass for 16. She got caught a little bit off guard, but her face quickly turned. She whispered something to her son, and before I could figure out what was going on, they both threw themselves into the ground and started screaming.
Help! Help! This girl just attacked me and my son and stole his phone.
I was now cringing extremely because I hate being in the spotlight. So I was blushing hardcore at that point and putting on my hood, and everyone was staring at us. Friend then comes out of her hiding spot and rushes over to us. Friend, what are you doing? She's talking to the two idiots, by the way. She then stops and looks at me. Are they having a seizure? My friend and I have a weird type of humor. My friend also knows that I'm not good in social situations like this, so she stepped in front of me, even though she was a lot smaller than me. Karen.
This maniac swung at me and my son and stole his phone.
She screamed again. Friend rolled her eyes because she knows that even if I was one of the strongest people in school, I wouldn't have ever hurt anyone. Nice employee then comes over to see what's going on. What's going on here? Are you okay, ma'am? Karen, insert what she has said 2 times before. Okay, calm down. She looks at me. Is this true, ma'am? No, she came to me and claimed that I worked here. When I told her no, she threw herself on the ground and started screaming. Nice employee, looking a little skeptical because I looked kind of shady. Okay, and is that your phone? Yes, it is. I even have my fingerprint saved and I can unlock it by passcode too. Karen.
That's BS. She stole it and put her fingerprint in it.
Employee. Okay, calm down. We can just go through the security cameras and see what happened. Karen goes pale as a ghost.
Oh, I'm sure that's fine. We're about to be late for my son's soccer practice. I'll buy him a new phone.
She then grabbed her son's wrist and hurried out of the store. Nice employee apologized and gave me a free slush. It was filled again when I was about to leave from the party, and friend and I got a good laugh later. What's your favorite flavor of slushie? Please leave me a comment right now letting me know. Next we've got, you have the wrong number. A little backstory. Blue Cross Blue Shield, or whatever health insurance company American Airlines has, is apparently the same phone number as my company, but just the area code is different. So I've been getting a lot of wrong number calls at work. I usually just interrupt people and tell them they have the wrong number and hang up without waiting for a response, and that's that. I try to be as nice as possible, but a few times people have called back. This story is about one of my favorite times. We've got me. We've got Angry Lady. This story is from before I knew what the phone number differences were or what the insurance company was. Phone rings. Me. Company name, how may I help you? Karen.
My husband is the pilot with American Airlines, and I'm in the doctor's office right now.
Me. Are you looking for an insurance company?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, ma'am. You have the wrong number. We're not your insurance company, okay? Have a nice day. Hangs up. Phone rings. Me. Company name, how may I help you? Karen, clearly mad but not yet yelling.
Since you so rudely hung up on me, do you think you could give me the correct number to call?
Me. No, I don't have the number to your insurance company. Try redialing. Hangs up. Phone rings. Me. Company name, how may I...
How dare you hang up on me?
Me. Hangs up. Phone rings. Now I see it's her number, and I'm kind of bored. So I decide to let her go off for a minute this time, just for fun, but I let it ring a few times and then pick it up. Company name, how may I help you? Karen, incredibly angry.
Are you kidding me? Listen here, Miss Company Name. Hang up on me again and you're fired. My husband is a pilot for American Airlines. Connect me to the insurance, now!
Me. I can't. I don't have that number and I don't work with them. But can I interest you in our new product? We have the best prices.
What is wrong with you? I'm going to have you fired. My husband is a...
I hang up. I hang up while she's still yelling. She called back one more time and I didn't answer, and she hasn't called back since. I guess she figured it out. I feel bad for whoever caught her when she did dial the right number, and I really hope someone isn't actually named what our store is named at Blue Cross or American. Next we've got, My house shares a similar address to a local retail store. I moved to a small countryside town a couple of years ago. I live on a road with a dead end for traffic that has a walkthrough to the local shops and a small shopping precinct. The precinct starts across the road from the end of the walkthrough. The shops on the precinct are numbered 1 through 20 as it's not very large. There are only a handful of houses on my road, so again, we have small numbers associated with our address. So my number reads 5, my street name, town, local postcode. The precinct store reads 5, the precinct name, my street name, town, and same local postcode. On a few occasions, it's become apparent that people have just put in the street name and the postcode when looking for the store. Their satellite navigation has then brought them to my road, and they have looked for, I guess, number 5. Normally, when I get a knock at the door, I explain to the store's customer and point them in the right direction. There's a small car park for the precinct. They often apologize, and some even feel embarrassed. One day, around 6 months ago, I get a Karen. My front door pops loudly. I wonder who could be making such a racket. I open the front door to see a lady around her mid-40s, very well dressed, the very well pampered type.
Karen, I've come to pick up my balloons.
Me. Oh, are you looking for the store? It's in the shopping center. There's no way through by car. Let me give you directions.
Karen, hang on a minute. My satellite navigation said this is the address.
She's holding up her phone with Google Maps. Yeah, that happens a lot. However, your satellite navigation is wrong, and the shop is in the precinct.
My satellite navigation is not wrong. I'm in far too much of a hurry for this. I would like you to stop messing around and get my paid-for balloons.
Me. Sorry, but I'm a private home, not a business. Bye. I shut the door, and Karen proceeds to start knocking my knocker again and demanding I answer the door. After a few minutes, she stormed off, and I could see through the window she was talking angrily on her phone and walked off down the road towards the walkthrough, leaving her car in my driveway, blocking my own car in. Around an hour later, she returned with her balloons and other shopping bags, got in her car, and left. A couple of days later, I went into the store to talk to the owner about it, if it was a possibility to email customers when they purchase online regarding their address situation, as I was a little annoyed by Karen. When I explained about Karen, the owner said she knew exactly who I meant. Karen had called the store and had ranted at them the whole time the owner was giving her directions to the store. When Karen had got to the store, she had ranted how I had wasted her time and been rude to her, and how the store needed better customer service. I'm in the UK, so a shopping precinct is, I guess you could call it an open-air shopping mall, as it's not enclosed as such and is a lot smaller. Halloween tradition ruined by entitled parent and entitled kid. This happened over 10 years ago, so some of the dialogue may not be word for word, but it was the actions that are key to the story. Me and my wife don't have any kids. We weren't able to have any due to health reasons, but we used to live in a suburb which had many families with kids. What we would do each year is go all out on Halloween. It was a way we could give back to the community and have fun while doing it. We probably have enough Halloween decorations and animatronics to supply a couple haunted houses with stuff left over. So we try to do something different every year for the kids and dress up to hand out candy. It's our favorite holiday. Each year we would divide the decorations. In the backyard, we had stoves, scary music, fog machines, several animatronics, and it was pretty cool, but intimidating to some of the kids. Some of them would cry out of fear if their parents suggested going through the backyard to get candy. In the front yard, we had some more tame decorations, and my wife was dressed up handing out candy. In the backyard, I had a huge candy dish set up, but I was hidden out of sight, controlling some of the effects and animatronics. This year, we had 20 pounds of candy, 4 5-pound bags, split between the front yard and the backyard. After the first year of setting up the elaborate displays, our house became the must-see attraction on Halloween, and we learned very quickly that it's always better to have too much candy than too little. We would do something extra special for the kids that were first to show up. One year, it was king-sized candy bars for the first 10. Another year, we gave candy and $1 coins. This year, we were feeling generous, so we decided $5 to the first 10 kids, which was split between the front yard and back. My wife had 5 $5 bills she handed out, and I had 5. I chose to lay out 5 regular-sized candy bars
with a $5 bill taped to each one and set them in front of the huge bowl of candy, which had both 5-pound bags emptied into it. Now, I should point out that we never had any issues in previous years. I always used the honor system in the backyard, allowing the kids to get their own candy, and my wife would hand it out. The kids had a great time and were always respectful. We actually garnered a lot of thanks from neighbors for going all out for them. The kids enjoyed it and would go out of their way to do nice things in return for us, such as shoveling our driveway, cutting our grass, etc. Okay, back to the story. This particular year, it had gotten dark before they started trick-or-treating. So I took advantage of the darkness with some of the more stealthy animatronics, ones that moved but were hard to see because they were not lighted, like snakes, spiders, and bats. From the sidewalk, kids that were not scared or wanted to be scared would walk down a small path around a few trees where I had let the grass grow close to knee-high, which helped camouflage the strobe lights and fog machines. I would have a few small outdoor speakers playing some kind of creepy or scary sounds or music as the kids would walk down the path to a clearing in front of our shed where we had this huge, creepy-looking wicker chair and a motion-triggered zombie that sat in it. You would have to pass in front of the zombie to get to the table, which had the candy, and a sign stating that we use the honor system. Please take one piece of candy. Well, the first kid showed up. A boy, his sister, and their mom. It was not uncommon for them to be accompanied by their mom or dad if they dared to go into the backyard. Both kids took one look down the dark path and chose to go to the front yard for candy. This continued for about 10 minutes before another kid gathered up the courage to come through the backyard. Yes, I scared the crap out of him. But when he made it to the table, he just stood there. I wasn't sure if he was still shook up from the zombie jumping up because he just stood at the table for a moment, afraid to take any candy. This happens a lot too, because they think something will grab them if they touch the candy. One year, we used the candy bowl with the hidden hand that would do just that, but not this year. I sat down the controls and stepped out from the shadows, which scared him again. I was wearing a long black cloak and black gloves and skeleton face makeup to assure him that he could take one of the $5 candy bars. He grabbed it and ran quickly back up the path to what I guess was his brother who had received candy from the front door. Me and my wife had a system to communicate when someone would take one of the $5 candy bars, so we would make sure no one would go to the backyard and then try to go to the front yard. I would flip the floodlights on the corner of the house, which she could see. We had a sign along our wooden fence that pointed out that you could choose the scary path or the less frightening front door. It was probably 5 minutes before 2 kids that looked about 10 or 12 came through the backyard together. They walked slowly, teasing each other along the way, jumping and screaming out of fear occasionally when one of the bats or spiders or other animatronics activated by their proximity or motion. They eventually made it to the candy table after screaming when the zombie lurched forward as they walked past it, but each took $5 bars. This left me with 2 more to give out, and then I would be on the normal fun-size Halloween candy. 5 pounds of Twix, Milky Way, 3 Musketeers, and Hershey's. The next group I could see was 2 smaller kids, around 3 to 5, with an obese kid who looked 14 or 15, accompanied by Entitled Mom. The 2 little ones made their way to the front porch after older kid motioned for them to go get candy. Then Entitled Mom and older kid decided to walk down the path into the backyard together. One of the first things I hear wasn't a startled scream, but the stuck-up voice of Entitled Mom.
"What a horrible waste of money. This is ridiculous."
It was shrill and snide-sounding. What she said angered me a bit, but I didn't want to ruin it for her kid, so I rushed to reset the zombie and to take cover. Now, Entitled Mom made sure she was speaking loudly enough so that anyone in the backyard could hear her. Entitled Mom.
"This isn't something for kids. This is sick."
I assumed it was a front to make herself not sound scared. I could see she had a death grip on older kid's shoulder as they walked down the path. They both screamed as one of the bats had swooped down at them. They ran on a wire when triggered, and one could come at you from the left and one from the right. Older kid sounded like he was getting shook up pretty good because he was whining. Not saying anything, just this unsteady whine, which was odd for an older kid. Entitled Mom decided to chime in again quite angrily.
"These people are sick. We do not need this in our neighborhood. Just plain sick.
It was quiet again until older kid screamed again when he had triggered one of the snakes in the grass. I could hear him trying to fight back tears at this point, like a bumbling, whimpering cry, but they pressed on. Entitled Mom,
I will take care of this. Just you watch.
Now I was assuming this was a parent that was trying to reassure their frightened kid, although he was a teenager. So I didn't think much about her comment at that moment. I was too busy thinking in my head where I would scare them. In retrospect, I wish I had paid attention better and realized it was an entitled mom up to no good. I stood behind the shed, waiting silently for the zombie to trigger. When it was triggered, it lurched forward while making an angry moan. It should have happened within a minute of the snake. After a minute and a half, I peeked around the shed to see entitled mom and older kid waddling. Their size prevented them from being able to run towards the entrance. It only took me a second to notice they had stolen all of the candy that was on the table and the 2 $5 candy bars. I was mad. I started running after them. I'm a tall guy and very fast on my feet. I got about 3 good strides in before I tripped over wires. I looked down and saw that entitled mom had cut the wires on the animatronic bats. When I looked up again, I could see her gathering her 2 little ones and hurrying them to a car with older kid. I was seething at this point. Her car was parked in front of my next door neighbor's house. I was at full speed as the car started and she stomped on the gas as I punched her passenger window, where older kid was holding the full candy bowl up with a huge grin on his tear-streaked face. The window didn't break, it only made entitled mom recklessly speed out of the parking spot with no regard for the kids that were trick-or-treating all over the neighborhood. Several parents and neighbors came up and asked me what was going on. I explained what they had stolen. Thankfully, one of the parents had got the license plate number before she sped off our street. I was ticked, but realized that we had other kids that wanted to visit. I closed the gate and explained to my wife what had happened. We decided to split the front door candy so we could at least pass out candy in the backyard, allowing other kids to enjoy our haunt. When I went back there to fix what entitled mom had broken, I realized that she had cut power cords as well. I took the candy back to my wife at the front door, knowing it would take me a while to fix the damage. I quickly began making repairs and adjustments. About 5 minutes later, the police had shown up, thanks to a neighbor that had called them. They took a description of the car and plates, while I filed a report about the incident. By the time I had finished with the police, the 2 hours of trick-or-treating had ended. My wife had about half a bowl of candy left and said she might have seen about 100 kids. I had seen 3, and 2 thieves who ruined the rest of the night for the other kids that wanted to attend. We had considered holding over for another night and allowing them to come again, but unfortunately the weather had got cold and very rainy, which messes up our animatronics. It was a few days before the cops had located entitled mom. She lived almost 30 miles away and brought her kids to my neighborhood because they had heard rumors about our mini haunt. She and her son were charged with destruction of property, vandalism, and criminal mischief. Apparently, several cops' kids were supposed to attend, but never got the chance after entitled mom and older kid, which angered several officers. The police also recommended I also file a lawsuit in civil court for the damages, which I gladly did. The fallout. In court, entitled mom and older kid tried to claim that I was bringing darkness into the community, a community she didn't even live in, and that she felt that she had to do something. They were as snide as ever in court. Entitled mom was found guilty on destruction of property and vandalism, but not criminal mischief. She got 6 months in county jail. Older kid was removed from her home and spent the next 2 years in juvenile detention. Apparently, this was not the first time he was in trouble. The court never elaborated on his previous crimes. As for the civil lawsuit, I won, and she was ordered to pay me $4,000 in damages plus another $6,000 in lawyer fees. The neighbor across the street is an attorney and represented me. We continued our haunt for another 2 more years until we moved out to the rural area we live in now. We don't get trick-or-treating kids because the nearest house to ours is about 1/4 mile away. Have you ever been to a haunted house attraction? Please leave a comment letting me know. Next we've got engineer upsets the crew, gets left behind 250 miles from home. Some years ago, I got a gig working a weekend music festival. Fairly simple too, 10 bands per day and all pretty standard rock and roll fare. Boss Man puts 4 of us out on the gig. Me, Dreadful Boris, Big Chris, and Hammer. He also said we'd be taking out an apprentice, a young lad who was the son of a local promoter. Well, always nice to have an extra pair of hands, and it's good to help train the next generation. After all, that's how we learned in the past. As it turned out, this lad was about as much use as an aqualung to a trout. On the journey down in the truck, he was boasting as to how he was a really good sound engineer already, and that he could probably show us a few tricks. Oh, really? We get to the venue and get busy unloading the truck. We've got a 16-tonner stuffed to the gills with 2 sound desks and about 16 kilowatts of sound gear from front of the house and about 6 kilowatts of monitors. As you might imagine, this is pretty heavy stuff, and it takes all of us to safely unload it and get it stacked up in place. Except that, after unloading the first amp rack, all on wheels but still around 80 kilos, the entitled brat snottily announces that, "I'm a sound engineer, not a humper," and promptly strolls off. Okay. Well, we don't really need him gumming up the works. We're all well used to slinging boxes around, so about an hour later, we've got the rig stacked up and strapped down, run out the multi-core to the FOH desk, and are ready to start cabling up and tying power into the on-site generator. Out of nowhere, the spotty oik emerges from whatever hole he had buried himself in and asks what he can do. I say, "I'm going to plug up front of house. Perhaps you could help Hammer cable up the speakers." "I don't take orders from girlies." Quick side note here, Hammer was 5'9", drop-dead gorgeous, and as hard as nails, hence her nickname. She was also a darn fine FOH engineer and a bloody good maid. Boris, Chris, and I collectively groaned inwardly and winced in anticipation of a full 16 broadside from Hammer. Seriously, folks, you do not mess with her unless you want the family jewels dangling from the nearest tree. Instead, she smiles sweetly, never a good sign, and says, "Well, I'm sure you'll learn something useful." I then go off to play with cables FOH, while Boris and Chris busy themselves with the monitors. A while later, I'm back on stage. Spotty Oik has wandered off again. Hammer has this resigned look on her face. "What happened?" I ask. Turns out that despite cables and connector ports being well labeled, the Oik had managed to make a complete pig's ear of plugging up the amp racks. Trust me, it's very hard to make this kind of mistake. I found him some moments later and told him that it was not the proper way of doing things, and that if he wasn't sure what to do, that he should always ask one of us beforehand. What then came out of his mouth absolutely floored me. "I don't need to know all that crap. I'm a sound engineer." Hammer, who was standing a few feet away, snorted derisively and rolled her eyes heavenwards. It took me a few seconds to process this particular nugget of stupid. Well, you have to know how all this works. It's part and parcel of the job, and as you're here to learn, I suggest you pay attention. "Well, you're just a bunch of roadies. What do you know?" Upon delivering this charming bon mot, he ambles off, again, leaving me to retrieve my jaw from off the deck, and Hammer barely able to restrain a fit of laughter that would have incapacitated a rhino. At a guess, this idiot thought we were going to be white-gloving front of house for the whole gig. An hour or so later, we're all set up, and we now have a fair idea of the acts that are going to be performing. In situations like this, you rarely get the opportunity of a full-blown sound check, so you have to rely on experience to set the desk up from cold. Luckily, we get the first act on stage a half hour before the kickoff, so I could quickly get a rough sense of the overall setup. A bit of exposition. It's convenient to reuse channels across acts, so I generally keep the first 20 or so channels for drums, bass and guitars, and the last half dozen or so channels for vocals. If a band comes in with anything else, percussion, brass, Tibetan, nose flutes, etc., we whack them on channels in the middle. Keep things nice, simple, and consistent across the board, and becomes important in a moment. The working procedure in show is also simple. Dreadful Boris and Big Chris run the monitor desk, and Hammer and I run front of house. We'll do 2 acts each before handing over to the other. Saves wear and tear on the ears, and when we're not running the desk, we'll handle setting up the stage for each act and troubleshooting where necessary, as well as doing runs for food and coffee in between. We also tasked the Spotty Oik with helping with the stage setups, which rapidly proved problematical. We finished the first act and aimed to do the turnover within 15 minutes. Generally, the incoming act will tell us their mic requirements and we'll write up a mic plot, which then gets sent up to front of house desk. Up comes Spotty Oik with the mic plot and he goes back to help with the stage setup. As I'm checking each mic, I notice that I cannot hear the vocal channels. No sooner had I spotted this than Dreadful Boris comes on the intercom and asks me if I can hear the vocal chains. He can't hear them either. He then goes off to check the stage box where all the mics are plugged into. From all the way out in front, I hear him shout, "Oh no." Seconds later, he's back on the cans. Do you know what that idiot has done? Only repatched all the vocal channels so that all the plugs on the stage box are lined up neatly one after the other. His words, "Ye gods." Boris rapidly repatches the mics and we're good to go again. A few hours later, and I'm starting my second shift out front. I won't bore you with my experience of riding herd on Spotty Oik on the stage shift, which, shall we say, was interesting. Currently on stage is a rather nice jazz septet. I love doing jazz. Give me a nice 20-piece big band and I'm a happy bunny. Up strolls he who shall not be mentioned and asks, "When can I have a go at mixing? I'm really good, you know." Seeing as he's here to learn, I tell him he can take the next act under my supervision. This happened to be an acoustic duo, 2 guitars and 2 vocals. Even the most tyro engineer should be able to handle something so simple, right? Wrong. I've already set what I regarded as a sensible baseline on the faders for him to work with. First thing he does, he reaches for the master faders and cranks in another 15 dB. No! Immediately, the rig teeters on the edge of feedback and I rapidly pull the mains back. Look and listen. Balance out the 2 vocals, then the guitars. Leave the mains alone. He then starts making wildly inappropriate changes to the channel's EQ. Again, the rig starts to squeak. Okay, enough. I shove him out of the way and bring it back under control. I won't fatigue you further with the endless catalog of foul-ups and attitude that he managed to effect over the rest of the weekend. Suffice it to say that despite the best efforts of myself and Hammer to try and teach this guy, they all went to a knot. Couple this with a constant drip 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 of snide commentary about how he was really a better engineer than the rest of us, and by the end of the weekend, we're all pretty upset. Come the end of the event, and it's now the fun part of striking the rig and loading out. I'm being sarcastic about the fun part, by the way. 2 solid days and we're all knackered, and the last thing we want to be doing is the get out, but of course it has to be done. It's always an all-hands-on-deck situation, except the Spotty Oik has, once again, vanished into the woodwork. 2 back-breaking hours later and we're all done, and the truck is loaded to go home. So where's the Spotty Oik? Nowhere. We give it a good 15 minutes, but no joy. We then decide to go look for him, so we spend another 20 minutes trolling around the site trying to find him. Again, he's a disappearing act. We get back to the truck. It's now close to 3 a.m. and almost simultaneously, we say, forget him. We climb back aboard and drive the 250 miles back to the warehouse to unload. Next afternoon, Boss Man calls me to find out why we had left him behind. I gave him the cliff notes and was then told that the Oik had to call his dad at 3 in the morning to come and get him, a 500-mile round trip. He then said, "I never liked that promoter anyway. He was always late paying the bill on previous gigs. Next time he calls wanting a rig and a crew, I think I'll tell him to buzz off." Next we've got absurdly long checkout. This happened today at the beginning of my shift, and I decided to post it on here since I'm clearly not getting to bed at a reasonable hour. I work at a store which has 2 registers, and as we're one of the closest stores to some people, we can get busy. I was at the register taking care of a customer when my manager, who I've always gotten along well with, pointed out a customer to me. Said customer was known for coming in about an hour or so before close and checking out last minute. Normally it wouldn't be that big a deal, but she would have a shopping cart full of stuff. Now, it wasn't anywhere near closing, and she had apparently been there for over an hour already, so at least we wouldn't have to stay open later for ringing up someone. She finally gets to my register with a cart packed with all sorts of things, and I ask her if she would like a bag since the store charges for them. There's a plastic ban in my country. She says no, and had my manager not gotten another shopping cart to put the scanned items in, I have no clue where me or her would have put all the stuff. Now at first I'm thinking, this won't take more than like 10 or 15 minutes, tops. Boy, was I wrong. Not only was I scanning an entire cart full of items, but I swear this lady was lagging or something. Every few items or so, she would be holding something in her hand and debate whether to get it for a good 15 to 30 seconds. Not uncommon to rethink a purchase. Heck, I've done it plenty of times. But she was doing it for nearly every item. This combined with the amount of products meant I was checking her out for almost 40 minutes. My coworker had gone on break shortly before the lady arrived too, so I was the only available cashier. Had my manager not helped on my coworker's register when other people came, I hate to think of the line that could have formed. This lady also spent a significant amount of time deciding buying a straightener. She decided yes, then changed her mind after I scanned it, so I had to call my manager to take it off. I'm not a key holder, so I can't void items. She then decides she does want it right after. She also had the audacity to think I would not notice her stacking 3 separate bins inside of each other in an attempt to get them for one price. Could easily feel that there was something in the first bin. And when I told her they were not all together, they each had a price sticker and one was $1 lower and clearly not part of a set with them. She tried to act surprised, but come on lady, none of those bins have anything in them and none of them are a set. I may be stupid, but I'm not that stupid. I'm already annoyed, but what happens next makes me laugh at her stupidity. She takes out a set of chip clips, one already missing. As she's holding it, I see her playing with that metal wire that makes those things open and close, and I can clearly see it break. She then hands it to me. Lady,
This was damaged. I was wondering if I could get a discount.
Me, sorry, we can't do that. I put it off to the side as it had to be put in the damage bin. After she was finally finished, my coworker had finished lunch by then, and she and my manager had been helping me with the line. Bless them. I noticed the cart which had stuff she hadn't bought. 3 of these were frozen items, now clearly too warm to sell. You know when you put a freezer item in the refrigerator and it gets bendy and soft? I go to my manager and we have a laugh about this lady's stupidity after I tell my manager about the broken chip clips. I'm then informed that this woman is known for purposefully breaking things to try to get a discount and not buying much of the frozen food she picks out, which usually ends up being damaged. Karen tries to get me fired from my amusement park. I worked at an amusement park at this time. We got snooty parents and kids, etc. all the time. Figured I'd start sharing some stories. This is technically a repost, but it got taken down, so I'm putting it here. Hopefully it'll stay up this time. 3rd time's a charm, am I right? So here I am, kind of dreading coming into work at this point, because I know I have about 3 days left of working as a ride operator. From there, I would go to work at the National Archives or the Smithsonian. I think I had decided on National Archives at this point, but I honestly don't remember. This becomes relevant later. So, I'm working at my favorite ride in the park. It's called the Music Express. If you know the ride that spins in a circle, goes up and down a little, goes backwards sometimes, it's that. They're everywhere. Ours, in this case, has a seatbelt and a latch bar. I'm working there with someone, which is unusual, as we were understaffed in that section due to a promotional event we were doing. We load up everyone, and when I got back down to the entrance zone after double checking my partner's work, and him mine, we really care about safety. You are fired for not being up to standard on safety. I get someone who we'll call Karen. She asks me to come over to her and asks me to look at her daughter's arm, who's about 5 or so. The exchange goes as follows. We've got me, Karen, and Karen's daughter. Me. What am I supposed to be looking at? Karen.
What do you mean, what are you supposed to be looking at? Look at her arm.
Me. I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm not entirely sure what I'm supposed to be looking at here.
You hurt her arm.
Me, honestly confused. Do you mind showing me where?
Show him your elbow.
Karen's daughter points to the inside of her elbow. I now realize exactly where this is going. This is going to be an entitled mom trying to get something because her baby is hurt. It continues. Me, figuring out what's on her arm. Are you okay? Is there anything I can get you?
Is she okay? She's been screaming at you for the past 5 minutes, and other people have been trying to get your attention. I want you to get her ice at the very least.
Me, knowing this is all wrong. I don't have ice here, but I can direct you to first aid. Karen cuts me off.
No, we're on the ride. We want to ride it, and she needs ice now.
Me. As I said, I can direct you to first aid.
Fine, we'll do it your way. We'll go to first aid, but we're not riding.
She said this like it was some sort of threat. Saying I'm not riding as a threat isn't new to me anymore. I'm used to it. But I do also want to add a quick addendum that once we check all the seats, we can't leave the ride area due to safety concerns I won't get into. New addition, FCW is friendly coworker. Me. That's fine. I can't go with you to first aid though.
What? Why?
It's a safety concern because
I'm a 9-year season pass holder, and I know you can come with me.
Me. Having finally gotten them out of their cars, like I said before, I can't.
Haven't you heard the customer is always right? You're coming with me.
Me. I can't. However, if you follow a certain path, you can reach first aid. Karen gets to the entrance and sees guest service flag.
Why can't you have excellent guest service like the person who got that? You're terrible at your job. I'm a 9-year season pass holder and work for the state. I'm going to have you fired.
Me. Actually, I earned that flag. I also have, pointing to something on my shirt, this because I'm one of the best operators in the park.
No, you're not. Get me some ice from that booth and we'll be on our way.
Me. I'm sorry. As I've said before, there's no ice in the booth. Karen.
Friendly coworker, get my daughter some ice from the booth.
Friendly coworker. I can't. We don't have ice in the booth.
Karen, stomping towards the booth. I'm getting you both fired. I'm a 9-year season pass holder and work for the state.
Me. At this point, fed up with these antics she puts on for the past 15 minutes. So you outrank me because you work for the state and I work for an amusement park?
Yes.
Me. In about 2 weeks, I'll be working for the national government in DC, which means, per your own standards, I outrank you. Karen, fuming with anger.
Get me a pen and a sheet of paper. I'm writing down both of your names and having you fired.
Me grabs a sheet of paper and pulls the pen off my visor that I always have with me. My name is Average Dude 1990. Karen pushes down on the pen so hard that the top of the ballpoint pen pops off and the ink with it.
Mighty convenient, isn't that? Get me another pen.
She whips the pen at me, which I dodge. Friendly coworker hands her another pen. My name is Friendly Coworker.
Karen. How do I know your name is Average Dude?
Keep in mind, by this point, she had checked my ID on 2 separate occasions before this, and I have a name tag that clearly displays my name on my chest. At this point, my memory gets fuzzy as I was completely caught off guard from Karen harassing me for a solid 20 minutes. She eventually leaves, and I try my best to going back to being my usually cheery operator self. You know, the one that has multiple awards from the park and one from a training company, as well as having been videotaped for random screening of the park to then be later used as a model for how to be a good operator. When my supervisor comes over and tells me I need to see the head of ride operations, HRO, Karen had apparently accused me of assault, being an overall rude and arrogant jerk, as well as being rude to other guests, as well as friendly coworker. Head of ride operations asks for my side of the story. I say that I was working at the Music Express with friendly coworker when she stops me. HRO. Wait, you don't mean other ride? Me. What? Is that what she said? Just asking. Me. Well, neither me or friendly coworker are trained at the other ride, and only one person can be operating it at a time. HRO. Well, she did say that ride. Me, laughing at the stupidity of it and relief. No, as I said, that would not be possible. That's basically how the conversation went, and friendly coworker confirmed everything I said. We were both sent home for the day, with pay, to make sure she wouldn't try to start anything more. The next day I come in to find out that multiple people on the ride and in line at the Music Express had reported her for berating me and just wanted to make sure I wouldn't be fired. Because of the statements of those people, combined with mine and friendly coworkers' written accounts of what had happened, she had her season pass revoked and was banned from the park for the rest of the year. A satisfying ending if you ask me. Thanks for reading this. I know it's long, but I just discovered this subreddit and this felt too good to not share. What is your favorite amusement park? Please leave a comment letting me know. Next we've got, I don't work here and keep your hands off me. So when I go shopping, I always have headphones in and am either on the phone with my girlfriend about groceries or listening to music. This time I was listening to a podcast. Not important, but if you must know, it's the Misfits podcast. Something about myself is that I am 5'11" to 6 foot, so I usually get asked to help people get things off the shelf. I actually had once joked about having a hat that says, "Yes, I can help you get that off the top shelf." Well, today as I am going through the store doing my thing, I get stopped and asked by these ladies, one in her late 40s, the other very much older, I assume mother and daughter, to grab these very large water jugs that were, for some reason, on the top shelf. Without hesitation, I get them. They thank me and then ask if I know about something else to be in stock, and I told them that I'm sorry, but I don't work here. I wear nothing but black almost every day of my life, and that just so happens to be the uniform here, so I don't ever get upset when I get confused for an employee. They apologize, and I go back to my cart. I could feel the presence behind me as I began to walk away. That eerie feeling, then that ominous noise of the throat clear, and I knew I had a Karen behind me. I turn around thinking she was wanting me to get something from the top shelf. "Hi, did you need me to get something from the upper shelf?" I say with my customer service smile. She smacks her lips and rolls her eyes.
Ugh, no. I want you to go in the back for me and get me some more of these.
She then holds up some cake mix box. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I don't actually work here."
Don't lie to me. You're in uniform and just helped them. The least you can do is help me get some cake for my church sale.
I think to myself, this really can't be real. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I really don't work here. I just understand that I'm tall and I can reach the top shelf." I turn my body around, but still have my face turned towards her as I go to finish speaking. "Have a good day." I then began to walk off.
Hey, don't you walk away from me.
She grabs my arm and pulls me towards her.
You show respect to your elders,
she says as she's still gripping my arm. Something about me is that I have very little tolerance for people grabbing at me without my permission. "Ma'am, I'd advise letting me go," I say to her, my smile gone and the lifeless cold look I give when I'm angry. She looks disgusted at me and raises her other hand, which looks like she's going to sock me.
Don't talk to.
I cut her off. "I said let go." She looked ghost white and backed away. "I do not work here, but I do believe the gentleman behind you does and can help you. Don't ever touch me again." And I began to go forward once more. I hear her scream at me that she's going to tell my manager, who is passing by to talk to the guy I had pointed out, and looks at me. "Sir, do you work here? I don't recognize you." I put on my smile again. "No, ma'am, I don't work here, but I can understand why you think that." And I began walking to the checkout. She just went to the horrid woman behind me who is screaming about me being fired and tries to calm her down. I check out and head to my car, and I notice a man about the same age as her, just relaxing and having a cigarette, letting out a long sigh. "Long day, bud?" "No, not really, but some guy just upset my wife, and I'm glad that I don't have to go in to try and thank him for that long car ride home," he said with a smile and an obvious sarcastic tone. I chuckle a bit, but when I turn away, I make the obvious face and wide-eyed look. Have you ever been mistaken for an employee? Please leave a comment letting me know. Next we've got, mess with the marching band? March yourself home. I went to a very large secondary school, middle plus high school in the United States, with a population of over 4,000 students. Because of the school's size and excellent funding, the marching band had its own percussion equipment, wheeled carts, and golf carts to pull them, which were stored in cargo containers in the back parking lot by some classroom trailers. I was on the equipment crew for the marching band, and by the time my senior year rolled around, the containers were about 30 years old and one had started leaking. The band director, let's call him Mr. Connex, finally was able to get them replaced after begging the administration for several years. The new ones would be arriving on a Friday, and a different company would be hauling away the old ones on Wednesday of the next week. So for a few days, the old containers were going to be taking up a section of the parking lot. This wasn't a problem because the night before, after rehearsal, Mr. Connex had us measure out an extensively large section of the back parking lot and cone it off, so the crew would have plenty of room to work the next day. We filled up the band hall with all the equipment and had the containers empty so the crew could move them, put the new ones in their place with minimal effort the next day. This is the part I only heard about because I was in class when it happened. The assistant band director was running the band classes for the first part of the day, and Mr. Connex was outside making sure everything would be just so, when all of a sudden a lady drives up, narrowly threads the gap between two cones, and parks right in the middle of where the old containers are going to be stored until next week. Let's call her Mrs. Seacon. Mrs. Seacon had an important meeting with her daughter's guidance counselor. Mr. Connex walks over and politely informs her that she will need to park somewhere else because the forklift crew would be arriving soon, and in return she went off on him, complaining that because they had coned off so much of the back parking lot, the nearest parking was off campus and she'd need to walk about a quarter mile to get to the main building from there. Mr. Connex told her one more time that she was parked in the middle of the space that the workmen needed, and she told him in no uncertain terms to buzz off before heading around towards the front of the building. At this point, Mr. Connex called the principal, Dr. Intermodal, and informed him of the situation. Unfortunately, with the number of buildings on campus and how many guidance counselors there are in a school with over 4,000 students, it would take the better part of an hour to actually figure out where on the campus she had gone and which guidance counselor she was meeting. Our school had over 20. The school resource officer could probably write them a ticket, but that was about all he could do. Calling a tow truck would probably be faster, but even then, it would take about 30 minutes at least to get the car out of the way, and the work crew would be arriving in 10, and any delay would be an unexpected expense for the school. Then Mr. Connex had an idea. He ran it by Dr. Intermodal, and the principal ratified it, so he set his plan into motion. When the work crew arrived, several semi-trucks carrying the newer containers and a forklift, Mr. Connex gave them very specific instructions for how to arrange the old containers when they moved them out of the way for the other company to pick up. A perfect box around Mrs. Seacon's car, with barely enough room for a person to step through between the corners. Her SUV was going to spend hard time in car jail until Wednesday. Then the new containers were unloaded where the old ones had been and the work crew left. About an hour later was my band class period, and since being in marching band was a requirement for the symphonic band, everyone in the room was part of the band, so everyone got conscripted to move the equipment back out into the new containers. Some of us noticed the car in the middle of the old containers, but nobody had a chance to ask the director about it, until about halfway through the process when Mrs. Seacon returned and shouted these legendary words which I shall never forget until the day I die.
What the heck? Where is my car?
I can only imagine the sheer terror she felt upon rounding the corner and finding the place where she had parked her car replaced with a giant steel box. To this, Mr. Connex simply, calmly responded, "Exactly where I told you not to park it." At this point, literally everyone had stopped working, and the few of us who had noticed the trapped car surmised what had happened and were basically dying of laughter. Mrs. Seacon ran over to the containers and looked through the gap and screamed when she saw there was literally no way for her to get the car out.
You should fix this right now. You should fix this right now,
she demanded, storming towards Mr. Connex. He simply shrugged and told her that the containers were getting towed away on Wednesday next week. She could easily retrieve her car then. This only seemed to make her more mad, and at this point, me and some of the other larger dudes moved between her and the band director because she looked about ready to bite his head off. At this point, the director essentially delivered the ultimatum that if she had no further business on school grounds, she should leave or he'd call the SRO, School Resource Officer, a police officer stationed at the school. Her response was something along the lines of,
Call him! Call him! Show him what you did to my car! That's a crime!
I don't know what crime she thought the band director committed, but long story short, the SRO arrived, laughed his butt off, then instructed her to leave school grounds and come back for her car on Wednesday. She screamed at him a bit about how she couldn't walk 4 miles home. Oh, poor you. And the SRO, after a few minutes, was done with her crap and told her if she didn't leave school grounds immediately, she'd be cited for trespassing, at which point she left. The cherry on top. Over the weekend, someone stole the wheels off the car. So even after the containers were moved, she couldn't get her car until one of those portable service companies came and put new wheels on it at some point Friday afternoon. Next we've got, teacher tries to use my disabilities against me. I got her fired. This takes place in the fall of the 2016 to 2017 school year. I was a senior at the time. The teacher in question was an English teacher that I will call Miss Dog because her name could also be a type of animal. Miss Dog was particularly nice for the most part. She had a really high-pitched and nasally voice that she loved to hear at all times. The first day of school, I introduced myself to her and asked if she read over my 504 plan. For people who do not know, a 504 plan is an accommodation plan used in public education when a student has certain disabilities that need accommodations. In my plan, it stated that I am a high-functioning autistic. I needed clear and concise written instructions and a special chair because of my spinal issues. I had scoliosis as a kid and had a spinal fusion operation my freshman year, so I was known as the girl with the back brace in middle school and the girl with the metal back in high school. Essentially, everyone in my grade, which was also everyone in this particular class since it was English 12, knew I needed a special chair. Back to the first day of school, I introduced myself to Miss Dog and asked if she read over my 504 plan. She brushes me off and does a, yeah. Okay, whatever. Teachers are busy and their jobs are really stressful. She probably has a million other things she had to get done. For the first week of class, I had to take some pain meds to get through English. Miss Dog would regularly get upset that I had brought a bottle of water with me to class every day and that I couldn't stay still in my seat. A classmate of mine, I'll call him Football Jock, spoke up and told the teacher that I do not have the special chair that I need. Miss Dog took that as an insult and was ready to chew out Football Jock when pretty much the entire class started to speak and agree with him. The weekend passes and Monday I find my chair/desk hybrid thing replaced with a special chair and a separate desk. I had thought it was over. Oh boy, was I wrong. This was just the start. Fast forward to the middle of the semester. We had just finished reading Lord of the Flies. Great book, by the way. And we had an assignment to make a music soundtrack for a hypothetical movie of the book and explain what parts of the story would have what song played. Now, I'm a big Vocaloid fan, so I went all out, but I made sure to use English covers of songs that weren't in English. After we get the grades for the projects, I see that I got a C on it, which was really odd for me since I was a straight A student. I asked Miss Dog about it, and she told me her reasoning for the C was that
I didn't know what any of those songs are. I was going to give you an F, but your written part and CD case were both perfect, so I gave you a C.
All while not looking away from her computer screen. I wasn't happy with that answer. I told her, in the middle of class, when you said everyone did a good job, you mentioned that everyone's projects had songs you'd never heard before. Did you give everyone else an F as well? She turned to me with a big scowl before just turning right back to her computer where I saw her change my grade to an A-. Not the plus I wanted, but enough to save me from getting told off at home for getting a bad grade. And then comes the icing on the cake. All semester, Miss Dog had me doing things to kind of single me out. She always assigned me with the dumb kids of the class. No matter how stupid it sounds, this dude literally drew a picture when the question sheet said draw your own conclusions. And whenever Miss Dog did this, I would always calmly and politely take it up with her, and she'd fix it by next week with a sneer. It's December, right before the holidays. Miss Dog assigns a scholarly paper about a real social issue with 3 sources. The topics of the essays were assigned to us randomly. We had no say, and we couldn't even change them. So my topic was something along the lines of healthcare. I was also taking a health occupation class at the school district's vocational tech center, and my grandmother is a licensed medical biller, meaning I know a thing or two about health insurance. I ask Miss Dog for help, saying that I can't find a 3rd source for my stance. She tells me,
2 is fine then.
I thank her for her help and get to work writing my essay. The due date is the day before the break, and we'll all turn our papers in. One happy Christmas and New Year's later, I get to English class. Miss Dog is standing up at the front of the class as we all come in, which is really odd for her to do. The bell rings and Miss Dog starts her rant.
I had high hopes for these papers. I had hoped you all would follow the directions.
She looked at me while making direct eye contact.
I had hoped you all would know that I told you all 3 sources, not 2, 3.
She went into a yelling tantrum about how someone didn't have 3 sources, making eye contact with me the entire time. I'm the kind of person to cry whenever someone is yelling in anger. It doesn't matter if it's directed at me or not. I'll cry. So after her rant, I took my stuff and left the classroom. I think I had gone to the band area to hide until the next class. While in my crying solitude, I finally said enough was enough. I'd usually just keep quiet about stuff like this. I was used to being teased for things since it happened a lot, and I thought this was no different. But it was. This jerk needed to pay. I got up and went to the office. I hated going to the office even though I never got in trouble. The feeling of just being in there just made me feel guilty. I asked to see the principal, and they let me. The principal of my high school was a very nice man that later went on to getting a position higher up in the school district after I had graduated. I sat down in the principal's office, and he was ready to hear the usual bully spiel a crying student would say. I took a second to compose myself and said, "Miss Dog has been using my disabilities as a way to alienate me from the class and as a way to treat me as a lesser being in her class. She doesn't grade my work fairly, and she just screamed at me in front of the whole class to point out that I wasn't like the rest of the students in her class." I've never forgotten what I said, or the principal's face either. He sighed and muttered something along the lines of, "God, not again with Dog." Turns out I was not the only disabled student that Miss Dog had done this to. Every student with any sort of mental or physical condition put in one of her classes was given this treatment by her. I decided to keep it going. It was already over for her, so why not make it as good as I could? Miss Dog has also repeatedly mistreated me during class by doing this and that. I went on for I don't remember how long with glorifying the events of everything that had happened in that class. I said how she had constantly threatened to fail me, how she'd give me bad grades wrongfully, how she did so many more things that may or may not have happened because of my condition. I also made sure to mention how most times her class was physically painful for me on most days because she would take my special chair and use it as a footrest and make me sit on an uncomfortable stool. Which was true, she did take my chair quite often and then scolded me for bringing a water bottle into the classroom when I had to take some meds for pain. I was Michelangelo, and all these accusations against Miss Dog was the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. My masterpiece. I don't snitch, but when I do, I squeal like a pig. Every single wrongdoing that Miss Dog had done to me, and others in my class as well, were told to the principal that day. For the rest of the semester, I had to spend the time I'd be in English in the main office. I was exempt from the exams for the class and had automatically passed due to my flawless straight A's and 3.7 GPA. I had learned that the day of exams, the principal had gone to Miss Dog's classroom when first period started. He told her that she wasn't allowed to administer the exams and that he would instead because she was fired and needed to get her personal belongings and leave the school property immediately. I don't know how true the part where she was fired in front of students was, since I was told that part by other students from the rumor mill. But I know for sure that she was indeed fired. But that wasn't it. I was in marching band in high school, and my school's band was about 300 kids in my senior year. My grandma also did their student accounts. I told my grandma to send a newsletter out to all the marching band parents about how they need to be aware that some teachers are not there for the best interest of their students, and we made sure to put Miss Dog's name in it, along with her crimes against little old me. 300 students, which meant around 600 or more parents. Parents that work at other school districts in some cases. Miss Dog is no longer allowed to work at any school or educational facility. She is also not allowed to work at places that work with disabled people. Last thing I heard of her, she was working 3 part-time jobs in fast food. Not 2, 3. Entitled Mom and Entitled Dad try to take my dog while at the pet store. This happened a year ago, and now that it is all behind me, I can finally share. The people. We've got Entitled Mom and Entitled Dad. We've got Entitled Kid 1, a girl that makes Verucha's salt look like a saint. Entitled Kid 2, a boy that really thinks everything that he wants automatically becomes his. We've got me. We've got HD, my happy all-the-time dog that loves meeting new people and other dogs. We've got my mother. We've got Ace, awesome store employee. We've got store manager, kennel manager, and other manager. So it was a Wednesday, and like all of the second Wednesdays of each month,
My mom has chemo in a city about 1.5 hours away. I always go with her as she sometimes gets sick afterwards and I have to drive home. The only problem is that I have a dog that can't be left home for the amount of time we are gone. I found that a large retail pet store in the city also has boarding and pet sitting. I sign up and we drop her off while we are at the hospital all day. She loves going there and she really loves playing with other dogs all day. At night when we pick her up, she is usually dead tired and sleeps all the way home. We become regulars and most of the staff knows us at the kennel part of the store. On this particular day, we were dropping off Happy Dog at 9 and picking up at 4. We go and do our usual, doctors, chemo, lunch, and any shopping we want to do. We head back to the store around 3:30 to pick up Happy Dog. We walk around so we can watch Happy Dog play without her seeing us. The play areas for the dogs are in an area where customers can look in. I have my first encounter with Entitled Kid 1 and Entitled Kid 2. Entitled Kid 1. There are so many dogs, but I really like the brown and white little one right there, as she points to my dog. Entitled Kid 2. We should ask Mom and Dad for a dog. Entitled Kid 2. The dog you like really likes to play. Happy Dog is still a puppy at this time. I go in and the manager takes care of us. My mom had to go to the bathroom, then wants to go next door for a minute, and we agree for her to come back to get me when she is done. I take Happy Dog and put her in a cart to make it easier to get through the store. I wander to the cat aisle just to see what Happy Dog would do with the cats. This is where I am greeted by Entitled Mom, Entitled Kid 1, and Entitled Kid 2. Entitled Mom.
Excuse me, my kids really like your dog. Can they pet her?
Me. Sure. I get this often when Happy Dog is with me. No big deal. Entitled Mom.
We just lost our dog, so all we have left is a cat.
Me. Sorry to hear that. Entitled Kid 1.
Mom, I really like this dog. Can we get him?
Entitled Kid 2.
I want that dog too, Mom. We have to get it.
Me. Sorry kids, but she isn't for sale. This is the point I should have walked away from them. Entitled Mom.
Everything is for sale. Name your price.
Me. Sorry, but you don't have that much money.
We make more money in an hour than you will in your life. So name your price.
Sorry. Again, she isn't for Entitled Kid 1.
He likes us more than he likes you. The dog knows he will have a better life with us. So just give him to my mom and stop with the nonsense.
Entitled Kid 2 at this point is trying to undo Happy Dog's leash. I keep it attached in such a way so to keep Happy Dog from jumping out of the cart when we go shopping. I snap at Entitled Kid 2. Leave it alone. It becomes a blur at this point. Entitled Kid 2 keeps trying to take Happy Dog. Entitled Mom degrading me. Entitled Kid 1 really degrading me. I just move us to the end of the aisle and then back over to the dog treats aisle. My biggest downfall is that I should have just left the store. I am looking at dental chews and get caught up in reading ingredients when it happened. I turn to put my choice in the cart, and my cart and dog are gone. I immediately start looking in the aisles. A store employee asks what the matter is, and I say that my cart and dog are gone. She radios to security, and I hear that they are in the back of the store in the corner. We go back there, and Happy Dog is out of the cart and wrapped in a jacket. Me. What are you doing with my dog? Entitled Mom.
This is our dog.
Entitled Kid.
This is ours, you jerk. Leave us alone. It's our dog now.
Entitled Dad. You couldn't afford a nice dog like this, so just go on. We don't talk to people like you. Me. Store employee. I had a problem with these people earlier when I wouldn't sell them my dog. Employee. Okay, let me talk to security. Security comes and escorts everyone to 2 rooms. They take Happy Dog back to the kennel. The store manager comes in, and I explain what happened, show her pictures of Happy Dog since she was a puppy that are on my phone. Then she goes to look at footage and talk to witnesses. The store manager finds out that Happy Dog and I are regulars. She brings the manager and kennel manager back up front with her. She asks me if I want to press charges, which I say yes. She then has security call the sheriff's department and leads me and Happy Dog into the room where they are waiting. Store manager. We have determined you all are not being truthful about the dog. Entitled Dad.
We have papers to prove she is ours.
Kennel manager. No, her name is Happy Dog, and she is his. Entitled mom. No, she isn't. She is ours. What part of that don't you plebes understand? Other manager.
Sorry, but no, she isn't. We've been seeing her since she was a puppy.
No, you have not, moron.
Entitled dad.
We are leaving with our dog.
Security stops him and tells him no, he isn't. My mom finally comes back. An awesome store employee brings her back to where we are. One thing you should know is that Happy Dog loves her Grammy more than life itself. Also, my mom loves her deeply. When Happy Dog sees her, she immediately runs to her and lunges so hard my mom had to catch her. My mom. What is going on? Me. These idiots thought they could steal Happy Dog and get away with it. The sheriff's deputy finally gets there. He takes me, my mom, and Happy Dog into another room and gets my story. He then goes and talks with every witness and watches the footage. He then gets their side, which he got 3 different accounts of what happened. He comes back in and tells me that the 3, Entitled Dad, Entitled Mom, and Entitled Kid 1, are going to be charged. All 3 were arrested. They wouldn't plea bargain and wanted to go to trial. The trial itself wasn't pretty. I was in tears, and I am again typing this out, halfway through the DA's questioning. The lawyer for them kept trying to trip me up and say something wrong. He didn't. And the fun part, they sued me for $25,000. The judge laughed at that one and dismissed it. I am now going after the lawyer for ethics violations as well as sanctions from the court. She should have never put her name to that hot pile of garbage. It is a serious violation. I know you all want to know who took the card. All 3 did. Entitled Mom took it from where I was, then gave it to Entitled Dad, who then gave it to Entitled Kid 1. She pushed it to the back of the store and met up with all of them again. Do you have any pets like a cat or a dog? Please leave a comment letting me know. Next we've got, please don't go shopping right as a store is closing. For about 2 years, from ages 15 to 17, I worked at a local grocery store at the checkout line. I really hated the job, but I needed the money, so I pushed through it. Although I rarely remembered anyone I served during my time there were a few notable customers that everyone that worked in the store was aware of. They all did one thing in common. They had come into the store 5 to 10 minutes before closing and take their time shopping for groceries, forcing you to work past closing to wait for them. Here's a few characters that'll be relevant to the story. Names have been changed. Annoying Customer 1. More of an inconvenience than anything. She was annoying, but not rude. She had come before closing and always refused to use a card, opting into carrying everything instead and complaining about the wait. Annoying Customer 2. Very rude customer. She had always come in right before closing as well as have a bunch of coupons to sort out. She'd always hold back the line and cause a fuss. Karen. The worst of the worst. She was the customer most notorious of making you stay late, chewing you out, and dumping buckets of coupons onto the register upon checkout. Manager. One of my favorite managers was on that night. She was very polite and wasn't afraid to stick up for employees. Other characters I met this particular night. Annoying man and annoying woman. In short, this particular night had a series of miserable events, all happening within a span of about 10 minutes. The store I worked at closed at 10, and I was the closer that night. It was just me and manager there, and as 9:30 rolled up, I was anxious to get out of there and go home. Everything was going completely fine until I saw the familiar face of Annoying Customer 1 walk in the door. I rolled my eyes to myself as I imagined having to stay a few minutes late to deal with her. However, my night was far from done. On cue, Annoying Customer 2 walked in from the other side of the store. At this point, I knew I was in for a miserable night, especially when she yelled, "I'm here!" from across the store. Just when I thought the night couldn't get any worse, in walks Karen. At this point, I thought I was going insane. The 3 most horrible customers all walked in within 1 minute of each other, and I knew they wouldn't be done in the 30 minutes until closing. 10 o'clock rolls around, and as I suspected, Karen, Annoying Customer 1, and Annoying Customer 2 had yet to show up in line. At about 10:10, my manager made an announcement that everyone needed to bring their items to the register as we were officially closed. Finally, Annoying Customer 1 walked in line at about 10:15. She complained about her bag being too heavy and used all her coupons, but I took care of her relatively easily. I wait another 5 minutes, and in walks Karen, annoying customer 2, and 2 other customers into the line, annoying man and annoying woman. I take care of Karen first, who pulls out her usual bag of plastic bags full of coupons, spare change, and rubber bands. She gives me about 10 coupons to ring up. I check her out, and she doesn't have quite enough money on her. She then goes register to register, grabbing change from the take a penny cup on each register. She finally gets within $1 when I tell her that she's fine. She then stands and watches me bag her groceries, yelling at me to triple bag everything. She only had a few items, and it somehow nearly took her an hour to pick all of them out. Next up was annoying customer 2. She also pulled out her coupons, then gave me a hard time for having such a long line and being understaffed. At this point, manager was working with me, and we were bagging the groceries together. We checked annoying customer out, then we're left with annoying man and annoying woman. Annoying man went first, and I checked him out rather incident-free. He comes back later in the story. At this time, I hear a banging on the window, and a woman, presumably a friend of annoying woman, is pounding on the window, seeming to be yelling, "What is taking so long?" My manager and I both ignored her and started taking care of annoying woman. All she was buying was a gift card, and no matter what I did, it would not scan. After trying everything possible, my manager said she'd take care of it at the service desk and told me to go home. All of this time, annoying woman was yelling at me about how late it is and how bad our service is for the gift card not working. Finally, I am able to check out at around 10:40. I walk over to the door, and annoying man is still standing by it. Apparently, because it was so late, the doors had to be auto-locked, and annoying man couldn't get the doors open. This usually is an easy fix, and the door unlocks easily. But annoying man had messed around with the door, and now I couldn't get it open either. After trying to get the door open for about 5 minutes, I go and get my manager, who's still taking on annoying woman. My manager comes over, and she can't get the door open either. Apparently, annoying man had broken the door by trying to force it open so hard. Now it's me, my manager, and annoying man and woman all at the locked door. Both customers are yelling at us about our poor customer service and how dangerous it is for the door to lock. After another 5 to 10 minutes of messing around with the door, me and manager finally are able to get the door open despite the broken lock. I left the store that night at about 10:55. Please don't go shopping right as the store is closing. Have you ever had to stay at work late because of an annoying customer? Please leave a comment letting me know. Next we've got, "But you're wearing a uniform." We've got me. We've got crazy lady and security guard. A bit of backstory. I work, as I have mentioned in other stories, in a Japanese restaurant here in Switzerland. Our uniform is completely black, so black trousers, black shoes, a black shirt with green writing on the back, a black short apron, and a green name tag. It was late when we realized that we were missing something essential for the next day that we need to buy today, since the shops will be closed the next day, Sunday. The shop right next to us was already closed, so we decided that I'll quickly go to the store in like 5 minutes walking distance. Since we were getting more and more packed by the minute, I decided to make a run for it and not put on my jacket, so it was me in my uniform. I enter the mentioned store and head straight for the aisle that I needed to grab something from. On my way there, I pass a guy who then asks me where the ice cream is. I, completely stressed out, point to my name tag, which has the restaurant logo printed on it, and say, "I don't work here, sorry," and continued walking. I laughed at this encounter because it was very obvious that I don't work here, but I don't think much of it. I turn around the corner and already see the aisle I need to head into when I feel a sharp tap on my shoulder. I turn around and am faced with a middle-aged lady with bleached hair.
"Excuse me," she starts. "Where is this brand of bread?"
I grin. This is hilarious. Two people not being able to see the obvious difference between my black and slightly green uniform and the light blue with orange uniform of the store. Me. "I'm sorry, I don't work here."
"Yes, you do. You're wearing a uniform."
"Well, yes, but not the store uniform."
"See, uniform. Also, I saw you talking to another customer before. So where's this bread?"
Me, obviously confused. "Excuse me, I don't work here, but I saw a store worker a few aisles back. Maybe crazy lady cuts me off."
"I don't want to be served by someone else. I want to be served by you. Now don't be lazy and do your job."
Look, I don't work here. Leave me be. At this point, I just walk off and grab the needed item and head for the self-checkout. I'm standing in line next to a security guard when I again feel a tapping on my shoulder. It's Crazy Lady again.
Young lady, this was very rude of you to just walk off. I want to speak to your supervisor.
Me, I don't work here. I work at the restaurant. Leave me be. I need to get back to work. Crazy Lady then starts a rant about how I am making excuses, but doesn't get far. Security guard interrupts her. Security guard to Crazy Lady while pointing at me. Excuse me, but she obviously does not work here.
Yes, she does. Don't try to cover for her. She's wearing a uniform.
Me, I am wearing a uniform, but not the store uniform because I don't work here. Security guard. Madam, she's wearing a black uniform. The store uniform is blue and orange. Let me get you an actual store worker to help you, but you need to stop harassing her. Crazy Lady huffs, but then decides to take the security guard's offer. And I was finally able to pay and rush back to my actual work. And this is where the story ends because I don't have time to lurk around. Next we've got Entitled Ex-Friend Ruined My Credit Score. Took him to court. So now I have been to court proceedings for this. Now I can tell you my horrible experience of entitled people. Mainly someone I thought I could trust. So me and Karen were friends for a while. She claimed she was disabled, so she would get me to come over every single day, clean, and get food for her. The amount of money she owes me for miscellaneous stuff, which isn't even a quarter of what she owes me for this experience, I'm going to tell you. So Karen had a broken phone. Surprise, surprise, as she has a vile temper. So I went home one night, and she called me to say that her phone was unusable and was getting quite aggressive over it. I said she could get her phone fixed. She said no, and that she wanted a new phone, mainly being a really expensive phone at the time, Samsung Galaxy S8. She was looking at contracts and was saying,
"Oh, I can't get it out for myself. Can you get it out for me in your name? And I'll pay you the payments of £44 each month?"
Considering my phone was secondhand on a cheap SIM-only contract and couldn't afford this phone contract myself, I was really reluctant to get it for her. But she persuaded me that she would pay the payments every month. So I reluctantly agreed. Big mistake number one. So the next day we went out and got the contract and phone out. She was beaming with excitement, always saying thank you and telling people how amazing I was for getting this phone out for her. I was quite proud of the fact that indeed it was a nice phone and that I was making someone happy. I'm a people pleaser, which is big mistake number two. So 2 days later, she changed the direct debit details to come out of her own bank account and informed me of this. Remember this, because this will be handy near the end. So I was in a long-distance relationship with my partner, and we would see each other every 2 weeks and always do fun things together. Karen did not like this one bit. So my partner came over for the Christmas period to spend time together, and before New Year, she wanted to speak to me. She was yelling at me for my partner inviting her and her boyfriend to fireworks for New Year and was making horrible accusations about me and my past. I got really upset and went home with my partner. Me and my partner had a lovely New Year's together, and he eventually went home afterwards. She texted me asking me to come over, and when I went over, I was the mouse and she was the cat, shouting all these accusations about me and my partner and saying I was a horrible friend. I walked out, and as I was leaving, she said, "I'll pay for the contract, but we are done," and I never went back. Scroll now to 3 months later. I moved away to be with my partner and was getting my life sorted. I got a call from the mobile provider. They said that there are outstanding payments on Karen's contract. The contract was restricted, and the only payment that had been made was a payment that I made. I had debt collection agencies chasing me for money a month previous, which I actually thought was for my own internet contract, as I was struggling to make ends meet at one point. I was shocked. She had not paid a single penny. Nothing. I was angry, upset, just thinking of my own financial situation. I said that I will sort out the outstanding, and I'll be in contact. My partner was so cross that he actually messaged Karen's boyfriend and was saying that she hadn't made any payments and also some home truths. Karen then rang me, shouting and screaming at me. My partner took the phone and repeated the following. "Why haven't you paid your bill?" You had to repeat what you would say to her. She wouldn't stop screaming. Then she stopped and said, "Why should I pay for it when I can't use it?" We hung up eventually, and my partner got a message back saying, "It's your problem, not ours." So I messaged Karen back the actual reason why she can't use the phone, because she has made no payments for the phone. So I had been in contract for over a month with the mobile provider sorting out this contract and got the phone blacklisted. Remember this also, this will become very handy. And I sorted the early termination fees and outstandings. Karen now owed me near to $1,000 at this point. I was in contact with Citizens Advice and the police. This was a civil matter and had to give her a chance to pay me back before I took it further. I wrote a civil letter stating about the phone contract that she owed me £766 and she could pay me £100 a month back to repay me, and if she failed to pay me back or respond to the letter, this would be taken to court. I had the letter sent and recorded delivery so I would know when she would receive the letter. A day after I sent it, she contacted me. Messages galore. She said that I was mad that she would be able to pay back £100 a month as she was now pregnant. I said okay, then pay me £50 a month. No, that was too steep as well, considering I had paid nearly £800 in a space of 3 months. I said okay, pay me £25 a month. Anything is good. Don't really want it to go to court, but I won't have a choice if you don't pay. She agreed to £25 a month, considering this would take her over 3 years to pay back. I said okay, I'll send a contract down for you to sign, and I need that back in 7 days. She said okay. I thanked her for this, being so civil, and ended it there. A week later, no contract back. So I contacted her where the contract is. She just said, "I'm away, so I won't be able to send it on time." I said okay, I'll give you another 7 days to send it back. Did she? No. I contacted her again, and this time I got nothing back, so I had no choice at this point. So here goes court proceedings. We added interest on, postage, and the court fee we had to pay to start the proceedings. She completely denied the fact that she owed me this money, claimed it was a gift, and claimed that I was the reason she miscarried for all this stress. Oh, that made me push further for a win. I got all the evidence I needed from the mobile provider, including the fact the payment details were changed 2 days after the contract was made, and the account details for that. 2 folders later of just paperwork, I sent them to both the court and to Karen. Got nothing from Karen. The hearing was approaching. However, she claimed that she was again pregnant 2 months after she miscarried, and claimed that the court should be adjourned as she was high risk. They adjourned it 2 days before the hearing was meant to be going ahead. We were planning to drive 200 miles for this, and now again out of pocket for accommodation. She was told by court that she had to prove that she was not allowed to attend because of her pregnancy. They gave her 2 weeks, and they and myself received nothing. The judge was having none of it now and made a new hearing date, which was yesterday. She was also given another chance to send evidence. She sent a half-written statement totally denying my statements and evidence, considering she now had mine for 4 months. So that pushed me even more to get more evidence to back myself up from her claims in court. We waited again for phone calls for adjournments, but they said no, we ain't adjourning again. Thank God. So we went down 200 miles to court, stayed at a pretty nice hotel, and got the receipt for that so we could claim. So court date arrived. I was so nervous to see her. This was bad. We arrived at the court and we were ready. Me and my partner were called in and the judge said, "I'm sure that you are aware that Karen won't be attending today." Nope, we weren't aware. She asked me questions about my statement and said that the payment details were in fact changed 2 days after the contract was made. She asked for the paperwork and I gave her the email I got from the mobile provider confirming it and the matching numbers to the ending account number and sort code. Of course, they were Karen's, even though she has purposely changed her bank to spite me. She asked us to leave the room while she made her decision. At this point, my whole body shook. Eventually, we both got called back and she made her decision. She said, "I am dissatisfied of the defendant's statements claiming this was a gift, as the payment details were in fact changed 2 days after the contract was made. I am, however, satisfied that you got this out for her on the condition that she would pay the amount every month, so therefore I am ruling in your favor." Cue happy tears and celebration. So I was awarded the judgment of the full debt, including interest, court fees, accommodation, and fuel, which then made £766 turn into £1,106. Karen now has to pay in 14 days, or I can take this to bailiffs. Oh, about the phone. Remember I said it was blacklisted? Well, Karen's boyfriend tried selling the phone and is now banned from the store for life.
Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard.
Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.